Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the wonderful winter wonderland that is the Jim Cornette experience. And we have survived the Survivor Series. We're going to have the full report here, plus a game of Stadium, Who's Got to Stadium, and all the usual shenanigans that go along with our program. And joining me, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you. He's a survivor with the eye of the tiger, the great Brian Last, everybody.
Hello, aloha, Jim. Aloha, everyone out there, all the happy people out there in Radio Wonderland. It's a pleasure to be here for another fun week of talking about all this.
You're stealing my gimmick here today, because I was going to tell you that this is one of those days where, I try to have a professionally run program here and entertain the people, the cult of Cornette. And some days, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to come together. I'm like, is this going to be good enough? Should we have something else to talk about? And I stress and I worry because I want to be professional. And other times I just say, well, fuck it. We just had a holiday. We're coming up on a couple more holidays. It's colder than a banker's heart outside, and I just don't give a shit. And that's generally where our better programs come from. But maybe we'll break that string today. And yet you're jumping ahead of me like you're just being frivolously jocular, and you don't really seem to be applying yourself yet, Brian. One of us has to give a shit here.
I already gave some music, some upbeat
That's
vocals.
what you call it?
That's what the world calls it.
Maybe.
Again, we've all heard you sing, so maybe your hearing isn't exactly there. If you think what you're doing, what you're emitting, is in any way, is
well,
all
no,
right.
wait a minute. You mean to tell me, you say that anything I'm doing is Paul White?
Paul White?
Did you say Paul White or all right?
I said all right. I didn't say Paul White.
Well, it sounded like, but I'll tell you.
Well, answer the question.
Well, I'm going to answer it right now. Because if you think that noodling on the cadoodle that you do, that is certainly not in the way of a Liberace or an Elton John or Vince Russo or any of the great pianists.
Yeah, I'm straight.
Well, now wait a minute. See, you got to go there. We were talking about their tickling of the ivories, not the taints. But if you think that can compare to my singing, my tonal quality and my emotion that I bring to it, I'll sing it now. I did it my way.
I'm trying to play quietly behind you.
No, it wasn't quiet enough.
Oh.
Can you play Far, Far Away? Do you know that one?
I don't know that one. How does it go?
It goes out the door and keeps going. All right, anyway, it's cold. And I've just realized I'm uncomfortable, for one thing. I'm just all verklempt here today because I've just realized that I've got two pairs of pants on. And now I'm going to start getting sweaty, and I've got a coat on over my sweatshirt that I'm wearing because 20-some degrees here in Louisville, Kentucky. We had 2 inches of snow over the weekend. The average high at this time of the year in Louisville, Kentucky is supposed to be 52 degrees. It didn't make it. And we had the snow and the cold wind. It's an ill wind blowing out there. And every time I got to take Harley out to do her Russos, well, then I've got to put 2 pair of pants on, and I got to put an extra coat on top of the coat that I'm wearing anyway. And I feel like the Michelin Man. And then I forget to take shit off, and then I'm sweating when I get back in the house and I got the heat on. Or as you people in Jersey say, sweating. So I don't know what to do. What should I do, Brian?
Nobody in Jersey says that except Chris Candido said it to you 30 years ago. So we'll stop incriminating everyone else.
That proves it's a New Jersey thing.
All right, what was the question?
That's all. See, I'm trying to get you to help me here.
Help me.
And help me figure out how to keep track of the layers of my clothing I'm wearing. It's so cold. It's so cold. And we got 2 inches. Louisville, Kentucky is like Buffalo, New York now. We got 2 inches. They got 4 inches. Oh, wait, well, hold on. I ain't got my glasses on. That's 4 feet. that they got. Okay, never mind.
Did they really get 4 feet?
That's what I saw. Either they
Holy
got it or
shit.
they were going to get it. Up
Wow.
there, the lake effect snow in Cleveland and Buffalo. In wrestling, it's called the Pedro Martinez effect.
That should be Daniel Garcia's finisher. He's from Buffalo, the lake effect.
Actually, I think a lot of snow is the reason why Daniel Garcia's got his fucking spot right now. But
Well, maybe that could be his finish, the snow job.
we can.
Thank you. You see? Ladies and gentlemen, it all came back.
All right, and Tony Khan can offer his popsicle, but
Don't say anything about Tony Khan's pop. He gets mad about that.
Oh, now come on! I wasn't talking about
His pop is not sick of. What did you say? His pop is sick of him?
his popsicle.
Oh,
His popsicle.
I take it back.
Go along with the snow job and the.
You did nothing wrong. I take it back.
I did what? You know what I did wrong? Probably was picking my broadcast partner a number of years ago.
Oh, fuck. Let me get Alice.
All right. Hey, go ask Alice when she's 10 feet wide. So I guess I should say now, the reason why I have nothing to talk about is because besides freezing my ass off when I take Harley Quinn outside in this brutally cold weather and the snow that is just whipping about, all I did over Thanksgiving weekend, well, I'll have you know, was sign merchandise. For all the people that have been waiting patiently for their packages, I signed hundreds of items over the Thanksgiving weekend, and they have been handed off to the Feather Bottoms by the time that you hear this and are soon to be entering the mail stream or the bloodstream or wherever they're going to go to get upstream to their location. And if you have ordered through December the 1st, by December the 4th, Hotchkiss Featherbottom had your shit, and it's being processed now. And this is where I normally do a sales pitch for JimCornette.com and all the fine merchandise available there. But if you haven't ordered by now, God help you if you think you're going to get it by Christmas, because I'm tired and there's a lot of things going on over here. And this is a process. So jump in and maybe it'll be here by New Year's. How about that? JimCornette.com. I want everybody to have a Merry Christmas. That's why that I've been urging you, because of the time it takes to personally process each of your orders with love and care, to please shop early. And now it's not early. It's getting late.
Hey, Jim, real quick before we move on, because it's
yes.
on the topic of you, the person you, and your social media presence.
Well, I love to talk about me. But enough of talking about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think of me?
Well, what I think is that we need to clarify something, because as I mentioned on the previous show, I have a Blue Sky account for anyone that's on Blue Sky looking to access the Cornette clips the way they are on Twitter or Facebook or anywhere else. We're on Threads. We're on Blue Sky. Look for Great Brian Last on Threads or The Great Brian Last on Blue Sky. But there's
don't look for me on any goddamn thing. As a matter of fact, look for me less often on the shit that I'm on right now.
Well, that's the point. There's a Jim Cornette imposter. There's someone who's using your exact image and everything from the Twitter account.
Is this Stephen P. Newable?
Well, we'll see, because Blue Sky is supposed to have some kind of way, and I know several people already reported it about imposter, to be an imposter account. But whoever's on Blue Sky, if you think that's Jim Cornette, I assure you it's not Jim Cornette.
Well, the same thing happened when originally the reason I was on Twitter, or I am on Twitter, is because Stacey said, well, you ought to be on Twitter. This was 15 years ago or whatever. I think I had 65,000 followers before I'd actually figured out how to tweet myself. I would tell her in the car, tweet this for me or whatever. But when we set the thing up, the reason why I'm at the Jim Cornette is because she tried at Jim Cornette and somebody had that, trying not being their own Jim Cornette, who's a baker of fine bakery products in Fresno, but trying to be me. And she, however you contact the Twitter people back then, did, and they said, well, can you prove that, you know, he's the real Jim Cornette? Well, this guy didn't have to prove he was the real Jim Cornette. How the fuck did that work? So we just the Jim Cornette because that says it more plainly anyway. But if anybody thinks I'm going to learn how to work another one of these goddamn things and spend time looking at that and blocking people.
That's why on Blue Sky, I'm the Great Brian Last as opposed to Great Brian Last as I am on Twitter with the character limit because someone else took Great Brian Last.
Why do people want to impersonate people and be someone other than they are? Are they that unhappy with who they've turned out to be?
I don't know. But I guess the point is, if you want your fix of Arcadian Vanguard and Jim Cornette clips, as well as my funny, stupid little comments, I'm on Blue Sky. Jim Cornette's not. The official clips are coming from my account. Even if they're retweeted, and I don't think he'll be doing it anymore, he just got blocked. Even if they're retweeted by the fake Jim Cornette account, tell that account to go fuck himself.
Well, now why? Again, is this actionable? Can I just be, well, I would say like, some rock star like Mick Jagger, but I guess he's 82 years old. He's probably not getting as much pussy as he used to. Can I just be goddamn Justin Timberlake or somebody and just people will send me all kinds of pictures of themselves in compromising positions or something?
I guarantee you Mick Jagger still gets more pussy than Justin Timberlake now.
Well, I don't know who the young folks are mooning and lusting over these days, but you know what I'm saying? Why can you just be anybody and tell people? I guess you can.
Mick Jagger, like every few years, Mick Jagger goes to like a foreign country, and then all of a sudden, like a year later, it's like, oh, here's the new Brazilian baby he had 9 months ago. Like he's always finding someone who's like, oh my God, that's Mick Jagger. I've heard of him.
Is he doing it now just to show off? Does he really want children at this point?
I think if you're Mick Jagger, you can't say no. So if someone offers it to him,
it would kill his gimmick.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not like he has to pursue it, even though he may still do that. He was notorious for that. But also, if someone's coming to offer it and you're 82 and they're 26, you may go, well, I have to say yes to this. I'm Mick Jagger.
Well, then in that case, I'm glad I'm not Mick Jagger. Because most 26-year-olds these days, I wouldn't want to speak to begin with.
Well, that's not nice.
Well, the young people, they've gone out of their fucking minds. I realize that now, that I'm not one. Anyhow.
That's right.
Yeah. Should we talk about...
We should.
This is going to be a WWE-centric program because of the Survivor Series happened over the weekend. But we got to check in with our friends over in Conland because I feel bad for him kind of at this point because they got to smoking the hopium. They got way too big for their britches, bit off more than they could chew, as Mama Cornette used to say. And they've adjusted their buildings down, as we talked about on the last show, where they're running smaller arenas or the secondary building in the market, but something that what they're drawing currently looks better in that building than it does in the 20,000 seaters. But they announced that stadium show in Australia. You knew where I was going with this. They announced that, last summer, right? We're going to do our first stadium show in Australia.
Did they announce it at All In, or was it right before All In? It was around the London Stadium show, wasn't it?
It's somewhere at that particular point in time. But how far, by the way, is Australia's a long way from anywhere, and I'm not disparaging our fans down under because we got them down there, but they're not close to anything. How far is it if the fans in the UK, is that a leg up on America, or is it just as far?
What now? What did you ask?
I'm asking you, is it just as far if the fans in the United Kingdom, who have proven that they went to Wembley, they love the stadium atmosphere, is that just like
it's still far. Oh yeah.
Is that for them like flying from New York to goddamn Miami, or is that still a goddamn round the world thing? Is it like it is from the United States, which I understand from people who've done that is like 18 hours or more, depending on where you start out.
It may be slightly less, but yeah, it's a big, long, day-long flight to the land down under.
So the point is, they announced this thing, our first stadium show in Australia, and we pontificated on how many fucking places they got in Australia with a stadium. Turns out they have several, but that our Australian fans chimed in and said, well, you know, we know about AEW because we're kind of really dedicated wrestling fans, but it's not like they're household names over here. And then they also announced at the same time they announced they were going to that building in Arlington, Texas, which seated like 1,500 people or whatever for that little residency. They also announced they were coming to the goddamn stadium in Texas. It's going to be our first stadium show in Texas. Like there had been a petition from the...
Yeah, right after those Arlington shows, too. We've shown everyone we can get 1,200 people here every week. We're going to really go for it now. Texas Stadium.
Yeah. So, and actually, it's not Texas Stadium anymore, is it? They've got a new one now, like they do everywhere, but it's a stadium in fucking the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area. And so anyway, now we said last week, but maybe you can, do you know by this point what, I guess it's out there, I just haven't cared, what the arena is in Australia that is now taking the place of the stadium show in Australia? We announced on one of the programs last week, if you missed it, that never mind. We're going to take this stadium show and we're going to put it indoors in a 13,000 seat building. Whatever the name of that building is.
It's the Brisbane Entertainment Center.
Is it Brisbane or Brisbane?
I'm going to pronounce it Brisbane and hope for the best.
Well, it's Birmingham. I know that much. I've been there.
The building opened in 1986 and the capacity is 13,500.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a LA Coliseum sports arena WrestleMania, the Slaughter effect. We shouldn't blame him. It was the Vince effect.
This is going from Giant Stadium to the Nassau Coliseum.
Well, that's what I was about to say with Texas. Because now I heard that the stadium show, the first thing and what's the name of the stadium now? Do we have that on the Google machine? Have you gone gaga for Google yet?
Hold on, we will have that momentarily.
But the first thing I heard was that the stadium in Dallas was going to be set up for 24,000 people. And that... There's an indoor arena, I know at least one of them in Dallas-Fort Worth that seats 22,000. So a stadium for 24,000 people. But now, and Brian, maybe you can explain this to me.
Globe Life Field.
Globe Life Field. See, Texas Stadium sounded cooler than Globe Life Field. You get a fucking free life insurance policy if you buy the Skybox. The pre-sale is ongoing for this event, and they have announced that they put 15,000 tickets on sale for the pre-sale. Is that all that they're setting up for now, kind of, and then they're going to see how it goes, or what is the pre-sale from the set's kind of like the pre-show. If you're selling tickets to the goddamn event,
no, but
then they're kind of on fucking sale.
No, these are not on sale. These are pre-show ticket sales. So these are, you're buying these before they're on sale to the public.
These are only tickets for the pre-show. You got to buy another ticket to get in the regular show.
I meant pre-sale. These are pre-sale. So basically, you can't buy these tickets unless you're one of the people allowed to buy them early for the pre-sale.
Well, how do you get to be one of the people to be allowed to buy these tickets early?
You have to have some time on your hands and want to get some tickets. I mean, there's no real... I don't think it's like a lottery.
You don't have to pass a test. You don't have to win a lottery. You don't have to get the golden ticket to get a ticket. You just have to... What do you have to do?
I have here, as we are recording a couple hours ago, WrestleTix put up an update. They were, I guess, in the queue online, and there were 538 people ahead of him. Or her, or whoever WrestleTix is, them.
Wait, So there were 538 people in line to get the first crack at tickets for a fucking stadium.
And according to this, 15,198 currently available.
Tickets, you're saying.
And I'm looking at earlier.
Does that indicate how many they started out with, or is this before was this pre-sale? Was this before the tickets went on sale, before the tickets go on sale?
And by the way, here's what WrestleTix wrote. The general pre-sale begins December 2nd. Tickets for All in Texas will go on sale to the public Monday, December 9th at 10 a.m. Central.
Wait a minute. Who's in the fucking public? If these okay, are these people that are in the pre-sale queue, as they say, across the pond? Are they incarcerated somehow and they're not allowed to be part of the general population? They're members of the public.
That's what you call the casual viewer, the public.
But what, you call the casual viewer people that are watching something else. But what I'm still trying to get from you, how do you qualify to get involved in this highly sought after demand? It's like Black Thursday where they open the doors of Walmart.
It says here
the night before.
It says here from WrestleTix, and by the way, the current seating setup is for 24,171 tickets as of right now, excluding the VIP deck and the suites. For anyone who wants to come and not sit amongst the public and get a suite and pay a lot of money to sit all alone up in that suite.
Well, haven't we determined that a lot of times the suites in these buildings for AEW or a lot of other things are empty, except for people who, like corporations that just here's you work here, or our clients take these?
Well, apparently pre-sale went on sale today, but VIP pre-sale was on sale yesterday.
Oh, God damn it!
But I don't have any known results.
Okay, what are the criteria for you to become a VIP pre-buyer in order to be able to pre-buy before the regular hoi polloi can pre-buy, before the fucking regular general population can buy the pickings that's left over?
And by the way, for anyone thinking of moseying on down to Texas for this big event, what's available right now is the entire floor, sections 5 through 24, sections 104 through 124, sections 209 to 226, and sections 316 to 321. So act fast. Well, those tickets may go.
Here's a question I'm going to ask you that'll keep you busy for a minute while I can pontificate. What is the seating capacity of this stadium if they were going to play a fucking ball game in it, or baseball or football or whatever? What is the capacity of the entire stadium, not what it's set up for? And while I still do not understand how that if you are not qualifying or meeting some kind of criteria, such as you're on their direct mailing list, or you're the winner of a lottery, or you've whatever the fuck, or you've bought a ticket to see one of their shows here recently or something, that if it's a pre-sale and anybody can participate in it, then it's just the tickets going on goddamn sale.
Jim, the stadium, and this is for baseball, is 40,300 capacity, but again, AEW is offering floor seats, obviously, as anyone would nowadays. That's not included in this number. This is
how many seats you think you get on a baseball field if you try? I guess we should ask Gotch and Hackenschmidt. But
you know what the other problem
is?
They're
setting it up for half a house, and the pre-sale had 538 people in line.
And we'll see how long this goes before they have to move it to something smaller. Because here's the other thing. If you right now drank the Kool-Aid, if you loved everything AEW was offering you right now, what's the main event that you're sniffing for that if they gave it to you next summer would be the biggest deal? There's nothing. There's nothing on the horizon. There's just more of the same. There's nothing really big that's going to cause... Hogan and Andre, people had to go see. And I know that's an extreme example. It's maybe the most successful one ever. But what's there that's going to draw people from Texas to want to see AEW? And then what's going to cause AEW fans to fly in for this? The era of AEW fans flying in for every pay-per-view is long gone.
Well, yeah, because there's been so many of them, and there's been so many more added. And I know people hate it when we point out that we've been consistent with saying something, but before this thing started, my comment was it, it's the world's biggest crowdfunding effort that has ever been, in terms of not that Tony needed the money and needed the people to buy the tickets, but in terms of they wanted to support it at the start, and that All In and All Out and All In Two and the big shows and the special stuff. But what about when they're doing TV every week? I didn't know they were going to be doing TV twice a week. What about when they're doing 4 pay-per-views a year and it's been 3 years? Whatever the fuck, at some point, how much money do people have? They can't continue to support a guy who they know has billions of dollars and is getting paid from the networks with their own money just because they hate the WWE and they're mad at Vince, which that's all gone away. And now you see that it's settled down to, well, it hasn't settled down. It's still going down, but it is the hysteria of the new thing that was going to change the world. It's now off because it's not new and they ain't changed shit. So that's when you lose the people who were, oh, it'll be a great weekend. We'll go to Chicago, and it'll be a great weekend. We'll go to Las Vegas. And oh, we don't want to go to Hershey. I mean, that's the thing. It couldn't last forever. And they had to be interesting, and they're not interesting.
Yeah,
it's interesting in a different way.
And the Elite versus the Moxley bunch is not going to draw a house, especially not a stadium show. And then you ask yourself why you're running that stadium when you could run a smaller building. And I mean, I know they have a deal with Arlington, but still, it's going to be embarrassing if. And we've seen already with AEW the law of diminishing returns for big shows. Arthur Ashe, and of course London.
Well, and the thing is, you mentioned, what's the main event? I know a lot of people will say, well, it's the brand. We want to see that. That was the thing with the first All In. They just wanted to see it. It was a happening, as we said at the time. It's historic, blah, blah, blah. But then it's like, well, yeah, the next time, and then the next time don't take place. You need an attraction. And whether it was the Freebirds and the Von Erichs, or whether it was Austin and Rock, or whether it was, depending on the era, Fritz and Dory Funk Jr. ran stadium shows and sold more tickets than this one is set up for. But it has to be an attraction, and they haven't got one. And at the same time, and we'll talk about Survivor Series in a minute, but they did the small set gimmick because they said, fuck, we're just going to sell all these tickets. And the company that can't put 5,000 people in most places is running stadiums, and the other company is having to make their goddamn set smaller to accommodate all the fucking people and cram them in. I think they ought to call a WWE and say, hey, you want to sublet a couple of these stadiums, guys? And like the idea that Terry Funk had with Jerry Jarrett. At one time, Terry Funk called Jerry Jarrett and said, in the territory days, when the biggest day of the year for the territories was Thanksgiving, Terry called Jerry and said, Jerry, let's fuck all of them. I'm not going to do the voice either. Let's rent all the major arenas in all of the territories' home base and get them under contract, so all the promoters will have to rent the buildings from us. And Jerry said, well, Terry, that's a great idea, but what about if they just say, fuck it, we're going to stay home. We'll be on the hook to run all those fucking buildings. And Terry's, never mind. Maybe they ought to call the WWE and say, hey, we got a stadium in Australia, low mileage, cool air, doesn't use a lot of oil. We can get it for you cheap. And there's one in Texas. Boy, take these off our hands.
The problem is, again, AEW's early success was unsustainable, and the pandemic happened, so whatever was going to whatever momentum was there kind of got capped. But they're still in a position where they need to build interest in the brand and in the wrestlers. And it doesn't happen. Instead, you keep getting these field of dream scenarios. You know, if you promote it, they will come. But they're not coming. And, you know, again, I hate to repeat myself, however I put that.
Well, I don't mind repeating myself. I do it often, but you do you.
But it's never going to get any better. This is Tony Khan. This is the Tony Khan show. The good and the bad. This is the Tony Khan show. So nothing's going to really ever logically be done in a logical way.
Well, but you know what? Right now, if you're on the AEW roster, if you just say, you know, Tony, I really think that creative doesn't work for me, bro. I'm gonna go home for a little while, and you know where to send my check, and I'll get some ideas together. If you're one of those people, you're home, you got a lot of time on your hands, and you realize that maybe long term you need a new career, I think you need to go to Shopify.com. Don't you, Brian? Wouldn't you send everybody that you know and trust and respect and love and hope for the best? You'd send them to Shopify.com, wouldn't you?
Why, certainly. In fact, I've sent myself there working on something that the listeners will hear about pretty soon, some fun, cool projects.
Well, that's because we don't send people to anything that we don't go to, except everybody knows I don't go to anything, but you go to a lot of shit. That makes up for the both of us.
That's
and folks,
right, yes.
If you've got some time on your hands and you want to make some money and you want to get away from being under the thumb of the man, the regime that's holding you down from your creative brilliance, such as the roster of AEW, well, then you go to Shopify.com because they do selling better than any old body. They're the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. They are the platform with which you can take your idea, your concepts, your products, your business, and you can multiply that thing like a bunch of horny rabbits all over the globe. And you will have people sending you money from Peoria to Pakistan and everywhere to the Isle of Man and all places in between until you have a malfunction at the junction. But right now, if you go to Shopify.com/JCE, what you're going to be able to do is get a $1 a month trial period that shows you that Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%. And if you've ever been in business, then you know that those conversions are the most important thing in converting things. And they're the home of the #1 checkout on the planet, as I mentioned, because they make people check out your stuff. Right, Brian? Everybody's checking out your stuff as long as you're with Shopify.
Well, when you know that you're purchasing something and it's a Shopify business, it's a Shopify store, you feel a sense of relief. You kind of know that it's on the money.
Yes.
And yeah, I certainly
you can go in the door either realistically in a brick and mortar place or metaphorically on the internet. You can go in with a thought that you're going to have a happy ending at that store. You're going to feel a sense of relief. You're gonna be taken care of like you're a babe in arms and swaddled, and then you'll spend all your money and you'll have a wonderful time doing it. And the person behind that Shopify store will be that much closer to retirement, kicking their feet up, living a life of luxury until at some point the IRS closes in and realizes that you have falsified your tax records, and then it could be dark from that point on. But that's not Shopify's fault. You're just a crook. So right now, folks, upgrade your business and get the same type of checkout as all the major players use. Sign up for a $1 a month trial period at Shopify.com/JCE, all lowercase. Again, Shopify.com/JCE, and you will hear nothing but the cha-ching, cha-cha-cha-ching of sales, because people are going to send you money for a variety of things. You'll be able to sell everything in your house. You can sell the wife, sell the kids, liquefy everything, move to Brazil, change your identity. all through Shopify.
Open a business and sell your goods to the fine people out there with money to spend with
Yes.
Shopify. One more time, without any additional commentary, how do people access that, Jim?
They just go to shopify.com/JCE. Have you never wanted to sell everything and move to Brazil and change your identity?
I'm pretty happy where I am.
Well, most people are happy if you'll stay there.
Hey,
Shopify.
that's not nice. All right, well, this is your show.
Yeah, it certainly is. And we've got to just make mention of Smackdown from the day before the Survivor Series, just because, I mean, I said about the Raw last week, are they cooling it off on purpose? Because that would be a business strategy. They're so hot now. They don't need to be shooting angles incessantly or, revealing any major things. They're coming up on the Netflix debut in a month, and I can see why they would be cooling Raw. I mean, you in the territory days, you did that not with your TV, because if your TV was hot shot and you were probably on the brink of death anyway, but you would cool off the house show cards sometimes, instead of, if you knew that something wasn't really a great attraction, you're probably not going to do well that week, it's the 5th week of the month, whatever. Instead of trying to put a big card in and it still doesn't do well and then you've spent a lot of money, you would cool things down for a week or so and start back at the first of the next month, and you would just have a smaller card. So that was a principle that the territories did. I can understand why they're cooling Raw off to get ready for Netflix and Cena and whoever else, the ghost of Bronco Nagurski, whatever else they're going to pull out, right? But boy, they're cooling SmackDown off too, and it's got to stay there, doesn't it? SmackDown's still going to be on USA.
I think you can cool things down towards the end of the year, because everyone knows Royal Rumble's at the end of January, or I don't even know if it's February, but end of January typically. So they'll heat things back up. You got John Cena's retirement year. I think right now, you kind of have the luxury of winding things down for 2024 to get ready for a massive 2025.
And I know a lot, some of the talent may be listening going, God damn, it doesn't seem like we're fucking slacking off. I mean, they're still having a variety of people beat the shit out of each other.
A few days a week, so everyone can calm down if they think that.
But then there's the furniture aspect of it. Where now guys have to take plunges through a variety of fucking office furniture. So I'm saying for some of the talent, they're still working. They're working hard. We're not talking about that as far as guys are going out there. Hey, ref, he pulled my hair. We're talking about the creative, the booking team, the powers that be are just like, we could just fucking coast, because fuck it. As long as we hit X parameters when it comes to the ratings or whatever. But boy, howdy, there wasn't a lot going on. And I'm just, they had the first 15 minutes of the show. This was November 29th, the day after Thanksgiving. If people are listening to this in the future, where our voices will live on like some kind of goddamn 2001 Space Odyssey bullshit. But the first 15 minutes of the show was the two women's WarGames teams doing promos and getting in a sloppy fight. And that was kind of and then they followed. The first match was Andrade versus Nakamura. And so, goddamn, with what we know now, but I won't spoil anything, but Nakamura beats Andrade, who they've been kind of pushing, they've been using, but for whatever they see in Nakamura, God, he's hideous. And then LA Knight runs in to kick his ass, and he doesn't land a fucking blow before Nakamura spits some mist in his face and blinds him and just walks off on him. And we were 35 minutes into the show. LA Knight did he kick an old gypsy woman?
Yeah. Anything else? Anything else you want to ask if he did to get this punishment of a push? Let's go.
I'm wondering if he went in and complained, if they just said no.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, with Nakamura, you know, it's funny. He's been in WWE now for a bunch of years, and he worked a pretty hard style for New Japan. He was great there. And he's, I think, in better shape and better right now than Ishii and Okada, which is saying something.
Well, now, I'm not going to argue with that.
Isn't
no,
it? But it's interesting because he came to America. Remember, he came early on. Before AEW, I think he was here with NXT.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, physically, he's not as broken down as the rest of those guys. He was the first one to leave New Japan.
It's the state of him all around. The appearance of him, I can see him again, sitting on a mountainside in a white robe with a bald head, smoking a long pipe in a goddamn Golden Harvest Kung Fu movie.
Well, here's the other problem. He's out there all in black. He's got some eye paint on, spitting the mist. He's doing House of Black better than they did. Because he actually hit with the mist. Remember Malachi Black? Every time he tried to do the black mist, he hit nothing.
There should have been the fog. Like if it rolls in off the coast, you're. But no, Nakamura, I will say this. Yes, he's more athletic and better shape. It takes better bumps or more legitimate bumps, or just moves in a way that a wrestler might try to move much better than Ishii or Okada. Either one of them. They're completely broken down. But it's the same point. He looks frail for that atmosphere over there where everybody looks somewhat legitimate.
Well, they got him now in a big black baggy kind of outfit, so you don't know how frail he is or isn't.
Well, he looks like some kind of fucking possibly the what? Okay,
he looks more like the son of Kabuki than Muta does.
Well, have you seen Muta lately?
He's bald.
He's fucking 60-something.
WWE Hall of Famer, great Muta.
But the point is, Nakamura, I just don't get it. And I don't think he looks that impressive for that field over there. And here we are, and we've got him.
Did you hear the latest about Kota Ibushi?
I saw something on Twitter that people were trying to argue to whether he had a staph infection, a Band-Aid, or a giant pimple on his shoulder.
Whatever it was, it didn't look like it should be something that someone should have rolling around on a canvas.
Yes.
Unlike WWE, I don't know if the promotion there was going to change the canvas in between every match. But I have an article here, and a couple people sent this to me. It's from Tokyo Sports, actually. Marvelous. Kota Ibushi in heated battle at Nagayo's 60th birthday festival. That's Chigusa Nagayo. It's not strange that his injured right leg could end at any time. Now, this is translated, of course.
Okay, apparently.
But there's a few interesting key points.
This is the partial translation, ladies and gentlemen.
Once again, Kota Ibushi, who's signed to AEW. Kota Ibushi, 42, affiliated with the US AEW, celebrated the memorial of the charismatic Chigusa Nagayo, 59, of the women's professional wrestling group Marvelous.
Marvelous. You look marvelous.
He participated in Nagayo's 60th birthday festival at Korakuen Hall to celebrate her 60th...
I just thought it just said she was 59.
Let me finish. To celebrate her 60th birthday on the 8th day of this month. He teamed up with Takumi Iroha and Leo Asaka to face Nagayo, Masato Tanaka, and Titus Alexander.
Wait a minute. Hold back up now. Chigusa Nagayo is a 60-year-old woman wrestler.
Yeah, she started when you started.
And she's in a 6-person tag match against 3 guys with 2 guys as partners?
Well, one of them, I'm guessing, I don't know who Takumi Iroha is. Maybe that's the woman on the side with Kota and Leo Isaka. But after 10 minutes into the match, Ibushi finally faced Nagayo. And they glared at each other for a while.
Yes, because one is a 60-year-old fucking woman and the other one has just had both of his feet amputated.
While the two finally approached each other, they put their foreheads together and engaged in back-and-forth chop battle. After that, Ibushi received a knee kick from Nagayo and was tightened up with an Achilles tendon hold, causing him to writhe in agony. Still, after 15 minutes, Ibushi hit Titus with a dragon suplex to gain the momentum, and finally hit Titus with a Kamigoye for the 3 count.
What is that?
Ibushi said this was...
Wait a minute, the Kamigoye, is that a blunt instrument of some kind? Or what hit him with the fucking billy club? What?
Ibushi said that this was her second time competing in a women's group.
Wait a minute. Ibushi said this was her second...
Again, translation. I'm guessing something is lost here in the translation.
Yeah, apparently, that's the problem. And people won't admit that the whole Japanese wrestling scene gets lost in the translation over here.
Ibushi said this was her second time competing in a women's group, the only time being the Stardom Ryugo tournament in April 29, 2013, where Ayaka made her debut. When asked why she decided to participate, again, they mean he, the translator, Ibushi said, here's a quote.
No, take it the way you want.
Here's a translated quote. AEW will be issuing visas again from next year, but I feel like the Japanese pro wrestling world is somehow declining, so I want to help lift it up. That's why I'm doing everything for free.
By having a fucking match with a 60-year-old woman?
That's why I'm doing everything for free this time.
What?
Yeah, that's the reason, not because Tony's paying you.
Wait a no! This is even better. So no. Oh, no.
I'll stop here. Let you.
No. Nobody can fuck Tony like that son of a bitch. Nobody can fuck Tony like this guy. This guy signed a contract with AEW because he's best friends with Kenny Olivier. And so Tony signs him up for, at the time it was reported, certainly it was $1 million a year, $1 million, but a lot of fucking money. And when Tony signs the guy, he promptly goes out and breaks or blows out the tendons and ligaments in, or whatever he did, a variety of things, both of his fucking feet.
On someone else's show. On
shows in Japan. And he never actually starts the official work for the official contract that he signed. And Tony has paid him to go have double ankle surgeries and recuperate or vituperate all this time. And now he's telling people that he's going to work in Japan for free to help their business over there. And why not? Because this sucker in America is sending him more money than he'd make there to begin with. To do nothing.
Tony Ibushi wants to know if you're okay with him working a big retirement show, a big anniversary show. Oh, who is it? Tenryu retired a few years ago, and Muda's not wrestling. Chigusa Nagayo. Well, let me go back to the article here, Jim. He injured his right leg when he faced Marufuchi at Noah Ariake on January 2nd this year. He was diagnosed with complex damage to the lateral ligaments of the right ankle, accompanied by a rupture of the right tibiofibular ligament. Although he returned to the ring at GLEAT, that's a promotion. He returned to the ring at GLEAT in July.
That's a noise that they make when the refrigerator jacks gives them the bonsai drop. GLEAT!
Although he returned to the ring at GLEAT in July.
I just can't hear that.
He is not yet in perfect condition.
Oh, you think? Because he's 40-something years old.
42, and just when you think Marvelous is the worst name for a promotion, GLEAT!
GLEAT!
Here's a quote from Ibushi to wrap this up. My legs are at their limit, and it could end at any time. I wanted to keep going before I can't do it anymore. So I decided to compete today. I'm really at the limit, but I want to contribute to the world of professional wrestling before I end my career. So I'm currently appearing in various places.
It's like coming to see somebody hit the wall. My fucking legs could break off and sting up my ass at any given point, people. So get your tickets now.
It's a hell of a selling point. Will today be the day his legs fall off? Find out.
So be splayed out, flipping and flopping in the breeze. That's when you'll know that I. But no mention of ending his career where the guy's paid him the $1 million.
The best way to get people to forget your leg's about to fall off is have a big gaping wound on your back, which are all these pictures I've seen. How the fuck is he wrestling with that?
That's what. Oh, God damn it. Oh.
This guy may be the dumbest human being on the planet.
Before we start talking about his goddamn dramatic situation with his amputated legs, you were talking about the giant carbuncle. There's pictures, still frames of him in this video where, again, some people said, oh, it was a Band-Aid that was flopping around on his back. But it looked...
I've had a lot of Band-Aids in my life. I've never seen a Band-Aid that looked like that.
It looked like some kind of... Imagine a zit that had reached the proportion of a fucking billiard ball.
The next new company over there, Pro Wrestling MRSA.
But the thing is, if it was what it looked like, I can't see how that it wouldn't have just popped, and because that thing could have put somebody's eye out. So I thought, or some kind of goddamn tumor or whatever the fuck. But you would have thought that if it was as bad, and here's what I was going to say: under normal circumstances, with normal people, you would have thought that if it was as bad as what it looked like, that he would have been all taped up with a variety of that, because they tape their own shoulders up just to support the muscles. How about to cover up a disgusting, repugnant, gaping fucking wound of some description? That's what I was going to say, but he might not be normal. What are you laughing at?
Quote of the year is definitely, my legs are at their limit and it could end at any time. Gleet.
You know what?
I've limited days
God
left.
Damn it. They need to buy that company and book the whole thing to oppose Jey Uso.
Yeet versus Gleet.
Yeet versus Gleet. Yeet, Gleet, Yeet. They could have. Go ahead, finish.
The idea. I only have so many matches left in me, so I better go work this 6-man match at Carrican Hall for Gleet against Chikasa Nagayo.
Yes.
It's lucky he wasn't Dump Matsumoto. That MRSA pimple would have.
But anyway, were we talking about?
You know what? You were talking about. You were reviewing Nakamura, and we talked about him compared to some of the other Japanese wrestlers that ended up here in America in the last few years with AEW. And again, Ibushi was built up, looked good in WWE for that cruiserweight tournament when he was still in shape. Showed up again completely out of shape, and everything he did looked like shit after they built him up. And then every fan of his was like, oh, well, that was, one-time jitters. He's never been in a cage before, whatever the fuck the excuses were. And then every time you saw him after that, everything he did looked like someone in slow motion. Nothing looked good.
Well, remember when he and Kenny couldn't even hit their double backflip moonsault run to the turnbuckle thing? I put that backwards, I guess, but who gives a shit? Where Kenny had already have landed on the guy, and he's still trying to clear the top rope there over on the other side.
And then he went back home to Japan and blew up both of his legs.
Yes. I
mean, it's incredible. It's like just incredible. The guy that did
the grasshopper backward knee bend on Twitter a number of years ago.
And now he's being paid to go work small indie shows and spread his staph infection wherever he can.
Well...
Maybe he'll be on Texas Stadium.
All the best to Chigusa. I hope you enjoy your retirement. She probably came back too. Is like, what the fuck has happened to the business? I'm going back to SmackDown for two things, and not Cody versus Carmelo Hayes. I Carmelo Hayes fits AEW because he is a random interchangeable person on the smaller side. And
You know, how could I ever take him or Andrade seriously when they were in a best of 7 that was won by LA Knight, who declared himself the winner after anyone who had anything invested in either one of these two guys was watching that, and then the guest referee announced himself the winner of the matches?
Well, maybe that's the problem. It pissed everybody else off too, but we'll get there. But you saw the sit down, right? You saw the sit down, the confab, the meeting of the the minds that Paul Heyman put together between Roman Reigns and CM Punk on this episode of SmackDown. You saw this. Now, have you not?
I did in fact see this.
And here's the thing. People are going to say, and the ominous music did not help the case. It was a detriment, I thought, to the talent.
It was too loud. It was too over the top. It was too much. It was unnecessary.
But if you want to see the difference between people who can actually conceptualize something and then perform it, minus the ominous music, and people who see shit in their head and that's why they ain't in Hollywood. If this segment had been on AEW, we would be fucking roasting it because of the overly dramatic nature and the ominous music and the sit down in the dark room and it was a movie scene. But the thing is, these are probably the 3 best fucking actors in the goddamn wrestling business. So for them, it works. If this had been on AEW television, it actually would have been better for us because it would have been fucking hilarious and we would have been laughing and taking the piss out of it because it would have been not ready for cable access. So for the sake of the program, they better be glad it was these 3 guys in it, because could anybody else have pulled this off this way?
I mean, I didn't like it, so I may not be the person to ask. I mean, they did fine, I guess, for their brand of acting. I think Roman's a little over the top with his facial expressions before Punk got there. But it was too much. To me, it was too corny. You know, it's the same reason I didn't like that Roman Cody Rhodes football field meeting. The idea is all right. Maybe if it was shot in a way that wasn't so produced, it would feel differently. The music was over the top. It felt like a scene. It felt like Paul Heyman concocted a fucking scene. And, you know, they were all fine, I guess, but I didn't
Directed by Quentin Haymantino.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like it personally.
Well, that's the thing. It was performed well. It got the point across. It got the story across. They are telling the story. And to be honest with you, I could see either one of these 3 guys doing this if this was a television show. But that's the thing, is it was, again, the ominous music. Whenever I think back to TNA and have flashbacks, and maybe it's PTSD or whatever, of those overly dramatic things it's the game show type of music. You know, they're thinking on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Doom, 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 doom. And like you said, overly produced because they could have done this in a shoot where it seemed like they just goddamn sat down and did this, right? But with the lighting and the exact camera switches and the doom, doom, doom underneath, you know, I didn't think it was horrible. I didn't think it was death because of the people doing it. But I don't think they needed to. But again, like you said, Paul is possibly padding his resume because somebody's got to do a fucking remake of Psycho, and who else but Paul? But the whole story, we haven't even told people what the story was. Basically, Punk was late, and Roman was about to get pissed and leave when Punk walked in and sat down. And the story is what the story is. It makes sense, and it's not that complicated. Punk has showed up for Paul Heyman, and he's doing a favor for Paul Heyman. And Roman says, I don't need your help. And then Punk says, I don't really want to give it to you. I'm here for Paul Heyman. And Roman says, well, I don't like your tone. I don't like your attitude. I don't like you. And I don't want to team with you. And then Paul, he leans in and works his spellbinding magic as the voice of reason. If Roman, if we don't take Punk's help, it's over. And Punk, if you don't help, then you'll be next. And then Roman agrees one time, and so does Punk. And Punk reminds Paul that he'll be owed a favor. And Roman said, what do I owe you? You're not going to owe me anything. Paul's going to owe me a favor. And then the one thing I did like was the idea of Roman asked Paul at the end, what's the favor? And Paul says, hey, let's get through WarGames. We'll have plenty of time. Because now what favor does Punk want that Roman is going to be unhappy enough about that Paul doesn't want to tell him? It's goddamn Peyton Place. It's Edge of Night. It's The Secret Storm.
Rocky 3.
No, that's over on the other channel.
No. Rocky had to promise Apollo a favor, and he wouldn't tell him what it was. Apollo wouldn't tell him, and then finally at the end, that's how the movie ends, with them having a bout in an empty building.
Well, I was just thinking of the other Rocky 3, that the plumber sees in his head.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, so that's it's a wonderful, dramatic, Sopranos weekly television program here. What is going to be the next quirk and turn in the bloodline? But in the meantime, we don't know. And otherwise than a girls' triple threat match, you had Jey Uso against Jacob Fatu in the main event. And I love Jacob Fatu's work, and I hate all guys having to stand there while Jey Uso's timing on his punches just kills the mood for me. But anyway, Jacob ended up winning because that give them, and a lot of people don't think it'd be like it is, but it do. That gave them, the heel team, the Outlaw Bloodline, the advantage in the WarGames at Survivor Series. And all Jacob had to do was a super kick, a Samoan drop on the announce desk, an implant DDT, and a triple jump moonsault. 1, 2, 3. But otherwise, that would be the Smackdown event that they broadcast for those particular 2 hours on the television network. And they're just coasting, and they don't have to do anything. I think they could come out there and just, the guys could come out and do radio. They get like where they would do the old radio shows in front of the studio audience. You've seen footage they would shoot that they still had the scripts in front of them. I think they ought to just come out and just read the fucking lines now. People will be enthralled. Are you enthralled, Brian?
Not by SmackDown. No, not this week.
I didn't mean to rush through and not give everything its proper due,
No, I think you did.
But I didn't know whether you were listening to me or not anyway, because, with you could be listening to your own particular soundtrack of the life you're living and the drum beat that you're following in your own head. You never know about you.
I like what you're selling. Are you selling? I don't know what you're doing, actually.
Well, I'm going to sell something here because I'll tell you what. It's coming up on Christmas, and Raycon, if you order their everyday wireless earbuds, they will get them to you quicker than I will get the Cornette's Collectibles products to you, because they don't have to autograph these things. As remember, they used to autograph them, but they didn't really have a lot of room on those things. It was like trying to paint a picture of the Mayflower on the head of a pin. So they gave that up, and they put all that extra money into product development, and they've come out with the latest model with the 32-hour battery life and the multi-point connectivity that lets you pair up with two devices at the same time. So you can actually listen, Brian, to two songs at the same time.
I don't think that's how that works. Or that's not certainly a way that it's suggested that you should apply the application of the said earbuds to the ears canal.
Well, but you see, it says you can pair with two devices at once. So I'm thinking if they're both playing, is that if
but that would be one?
You have to.
But if you're pairing the two devices at once,
does that mean you play one in the left side and one in the right side? You're playing the same song, but they're coming in. What if you get them reversed? You're hearing the right channel in the left ear.
I think it
or
means...
what if, like Uncle Droop, both of your ears are on the same side of your head?
Uncle Droop? Who's that?
My Uncle Droop, he could only hear in mono. He never got the stereo thing.
He never got the steroids or the stereo.
He never got the steroids either. Actually, he was pretty buff, except for the, way his head drooped over.
Well, let's not go back to mono. Let's stay in stereo with Raycon. Of course, you could pair up your phone, you could pair up your music, and you could bop around without having to worry about missing your call, for instance.
Well, that's true, or whatever's going on behind me. And I'll tell you what else. It's coming up on Christmas, and these are great stocking stuffers, because even if whoever your loved one is, male, female, animal, vegetable, mineral,
No, we do not endorse animal, no.
Well, no, I love my little Harley Quinn. I get her all kinds of stocking stuffers. And whether or not that the person in your life has ittle bitty teeny weeny legs or not, these will go in their stockings because the earbuds are not that big. And with the deal that we're about to tell you about, you can afford multiple copies of these earbuds in order to spread the cheer around your family and friends. And I'll have you know that they're available in a variety of vibrant colors. They say they match all your favorite skin tones, whatever your favorite skin tones might be. But I'm wondering if they've got red, green, and what color is mistletoe? I guess it's a little red and a little gray for Christmas. Or potentially if you have green skin. We don't want to, be biased against our Martian friends. But Raycon also offers a 30-day happiness guarantee and easy returns. So if, for example, you get these for a person with only one ear, and you didn't know that, you'd never noticed, they wear their hair long, you can return them, and boom shakalaka, you got your money back. Brian, oftentimes when you talk to people, you don't notice whether they have both their ears, do you?
Usually you notice that kind of thing, unless they happen to have long hair and it's down.
Well, I mentioned that. The long hair would, it hides a variety of sins.
Yeah, but it has to be down if it's
a ponytail, it's not hiding much. Straight up on their head? Who are you talking to? Don King? Of course their hair could be hanging.
It could be a ponytail is what I'm trying to say.
Fucking gravity, for fuck's sake. Folks, I'll tell you what, Raycon has tens of thousands of 5-star reviews online right now that you can go and read every single one of them. Don't believe the first 5,000 that you see and hear. Go through everything, and you'll find that they're all basically the same thing, because most of them are written by the same person. But anyway, Raycon started just half the price as other premium audio brands, so when you're shopping for multiple people, you get 2 gifts for the price of 1, and then you can save even bigger for the holidays, even more bigly, by getting up to 25% off site-wide. That's up to 25% off site-wide, depending on what you're purchasing on said site, at buyraycon.com, buyraycon.com/JCE. You're going to get up to 25% off on everything on Raycon's website. So grab something for 20% off, grab something for 25% off, grab these things over there and make them stocking stuffers. And again, guys, if your wife doesn't want to listen to you or listen to us, then she can listen to her own thing. So they get them and put them in her stockings. And that's a good way to meet girls. Get a few pairs of these things, walk down the street, and start sticking them in people's pantyhose.
No, again,
teach women real quick.
We're right at the end of the spot. I don't know why you have to say these things that people should not do and cannot do.
I'm suggesting a way you can get
arrested?
rid of a few of these things.
I suggest a way you get arrested? That's what you do?
You can meet new friends.
Oh, come on. Ladies
Just
and
shove
gentlemen,
them right in and say, hey, these are for you.
Jim's idea earlier about putting them in stockings that are hanging on the mantle, that works. But otherwise, just present them in the normal old-fashioned way that people have been giving gifts for thousands of years with Raycon. One more time, what's that promo code, Jim?
Sitting on the mantle. What about if she's just sitting on the curb, minding her own business? BuyRaycon.com/JCE. All right, well, Brian, now before we get to the Survivor Series, what in the world is going on in this week, in this time period, in this era of all the exciting shows at the Arcadian Vanguard Network?
Oh my God, it's so exciting. Just, and a little bit of,
yeah.
it's all
the
over
thrills
the place.
just keep on emanating from that keyboard.
The thrill is never gone with the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Get information about all the shows on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook, facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. And I'm on Blue Sky and Threads for everyone. Everyone's just being spread out. It's like fucking streaming platforms just
I
popping
know
up.
you
One-
done me wrong, and you're going to be sorry someday.
Well, as I said, get information about everything there. And of course, the wrestling news. Get your wrestling news, your wrestling information for free every single day. No opinion, no conjecture, just the actual news. There are slow days. There are action-packed days. There are 3-minute episodes. There are 9-minute episodes. It depends on the day. We don't fluff it up because we don't need clicks. We just need you to know that we're there for you. The wrestling news.
The facts.
Wherever you find your favorite podcast or
Is
get
there
it
any
directly.
guesstimates? Are there any guesstimates involved?
There are no guesstimates involved unless the guesstimate itself is a news story.
Aha! There's a loophole.
There's a loophole, I guess, to
But
admit.
there's no paywall.
There's no paywall. Indeed, get it today wherever you find your favorite podcast or directly from thewrestlingnews.com. Of course, Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam and Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon, two very popular podcasts. Listen to them today for wrestling history talk like no one else can do. Get their shows today. Shut Up and
Some
Wrestle
of
with
them
Brian.
talk like no one else can do.
Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon at suawpod.com. And of course, Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam at mcadampod.com. Both available wherever you find your favorite podcast. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, the Mothership. Well, thank you. Go through the archive, 605pod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
FM, no paywall at all. All righty, we got it. I'm telling you, I am so excited. I'm like a kid at Christmas.
Oh.
Over talking about the Survivor Series.
You liked it that much?
Well, I didn't say I liked it that much. I said I'm excited to talk about it. No, some things I did, and some things I liked. I liked like you like sometimes, Brian, like that. Like ironically like. You see what I'm saying to you?
Like, yeah.
Like, yeah, man. No, but here's the thing overall on this show. The points that they wanted to make were made. That people were not only into the stories, what's going on between these people, the interaction of these people, but they were sold out to the point where they had to, and we were just talking about this on a show last week that we did, one of these mini shows, where when we were talking about AEW going to the smaller buildings, and they said, well, we didn't want to do that because our set is so big. I'm like, fuck the set if you're renting a 20,000 seat building and having 3,000 people in it, right? Get a smaller set. I said the opposite problem was what the WWE had in several of those, one of the overseas pay-per-views I remember, in several events where they literally downsized their set to a negligible size to sell more tickets because they were jamming the people in the fucking building. I got a bigger screen in my fucking TV room than they had at the entranceway in this show. And it's Survivor Series. It's one of the biggest pay-per-views they do, but at the same point, they had 17,000, I don't know, 100 or 400 or what is that? Almost 18,000 people in this fucking building and not a ticket to be had. And That's coming off that deal in, where was it? In a, not exactly a goddamn major metropolis. What, did Salt Lake City or whatever? They did 13,000 people. And they said that they were even cutting down on giving tickets to the talent because they weren't able to get the people in some of these buildings. So isn't that worth it? The teeny tiny little 1-bedroom entrance is where it all started, Brian. Which would you rather have? A big ass fucking stage where you can't see any fans because there are none, or a little teeny tiny entryway where, because you're sold out?
Well, I've said it before. I'm not a big fan here in 2024 of the stages. They had a time, and even then I kind of never really liked the look, but it just became the thing of Raw. Nitro had their little stage. It became a big stage. TNA has had a stage. Even Ring of Honor had that rinky-dink little entranceway stage. You know what I mean? Like, everyone had to have a stage. It always looked much cooler. Like, the boxers used to come out. Just come out and come out. I'm not saying you don't have to go through the fans anymore, even though I do like that better, but Moxley may have ruined that.
Well, no, it's just going through the fans, even if it's the official entranceway. Like the old days when there was a lot of people in the building and you didn't have much room. When it was dangerous, they did it. Now that nobody wants to fucking take a swing at any of these fucking guys, they're 20 feet away and held back by invisible sonic fucking force fields.
It almost looks like the entranceway to the classic Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
It's just a little walkway and there's everything. There's, it's a longer entranceway, but there's no unnecessary. The stage is unnecessary. The big screen is unnecessary. And then that caused like lots of skits, endless skits. Unnecessary.
I always wanted to go and buy a ticket to a live event and sit there in a seat and watch television. But anyway, it would have been preferable to the poor people that had to. I know why that you're a little sour on this show, and I liked certain things that I normally wouldn't like. And I want to talk about those. I got a song I got to sing, and I'm going to sing it. But first, we got to get to my, I think, favorite part of the show, which you would have thought that you would have bet money I didn't watch the women's WarGames, right?
DraftKings. That's right.
Well, yeah, but see, there's where you're wrong, Brian. I'm one step ahead. Wild card, bitches. Because I'm still, the idea of a women's WarGames is ridiculous to me. If you had told Dusty Rhodes in 1987, we're going to take your greatest gimmick match and we're going to put 10 women in it, right there, he would have wanted to shoot you. But then do it right before the men's match. He would have tried to run you down with his fucking pickup truck, baby. They have manufactured a reason to have these girls in this match with these rules just because they feel like, well, if we're having a men's WarGames, we got to have a women's WarGames, like a men's Royal Rumble, women's Royal Rumble, and a men's whatever the fuck. Because the WarGames in the main event, the men's match works. It's bloodline versus bloodline with extra big star. It's not that they manufactured a reason to put women in a WarGames match, which, as I mentioned before, is ridiculous to begin with because, goddamn it, yes, Liv Morgan may be a wonderful heel and just a wonderful little actress, but if she's in the goddamn thing, it ain't that fucking dangerous.
Oh, she's a whole lot more believable than the work of some of the other people in this match. Oh my God.
We're going to get there too. So the concept of having the women's WarGames, I believe, is ridiculous because it just diminishes the idea that this is the most violent, horrifying thing, et cetera, et cetera. It's also that there was no reason they manufactured to shoehorn this in because they had to. And when you know that they're going to have a girls' match like the guys' match every pay-per-view on all these, then when they start doing the angles for it, it's obviously phony. Because again, most of the time, the better angles and better drawing matches are ones where you don't just already know, oh, we got to have this kind of match. Let's find a reason for these guys to have it, that the stipulation fits the crime. But also, now I've come up with another. We don't have to get mad at them having a women's War Games match because it diminishes the men's War Games and makes it look less dangerous or whatever, because we didn't have to worry about that. Because with this women's War Games match, they established that women, men, children, donkeys, whatever, if it's War Games, it must be phony. Because this was the phoniest thing that I've seen on at least WWE television in quite some time, and the worst work. I mean, there are a few individuals in this match, which we'll name in a second, that you want to see in under normal circumstances, but God almighty, this was a mess to the point where it fascinated me and I couldn't turn away from it, and I had to keep watching it. And I hate to hog the microphone on this one. I'll give you a chance to take a swing at this piñata.
Well, it's a bad transition. She brought up hogs, but I was going to say Nia Jax is the worst women's wrestler in a major position for a company in a very long time. She's bad at everything she does. She's bad at the basic stuff. She's bad at everything. Now, with that said, Naomi, who I've always liked because, you know, she glows. She just lights up, and that lights you up.
I think you've been lighting up if you like her.
Well, what I was going to say is no matter how much she lights up your life, she also was pretty bad. I mean, even Bayley at times, I'm like, yeah, Bayley's good. Bayley stunk in this too.
Yeah, see, but you're saying no matter how much Naomi lights up your life, Debbie Boone was a better wrestler.
You know, maybe she was a better worker. I don't know, but this match, that's why I didn't think you were going to watch. I thought you would have seen the opening few minutes. If you lasted until Naomi got in there, which was the third person in, from the babyface side, she was in. I said, as soon as Naomi got in there, Jim said, then I fast forwarded.
Well, no, I must say that there were times where I was not paying close attention to the trivialities in the middle, but I tried to view the high points because for the folks who don't know, it was Bianca and Naomi and Bayley and Io Sky and Rhea Ripley against the Refrigerator Jacks, Candy LaRue, Tiffany, Liv, and Rochelle. And Rhea Ripley looks like a movie star and a superstar. And her gimmick, not only her regular gimmick, but now with the broken orbital socket or whatever, she's got the mask, but she had a horror movie mask. She just looks great, right? We can't dispute that. But the rest of them, and I know Bianca in the right situation. Liv, we know she's a heat getting heel, but goddamn, Candy LaRue in the War Games.
Did you see that
Need
moonsault?
I say more?
Did you see that moonsault she hit when Bayley was on the chairs?
I didn't see one she hit.
Okay, so you did see it.
Maybe she did two of them, but
you know what the funny thing was? She didn't hit it, and then on commentary right away, Corey Grace's like, oh, she hit it right on. I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah, and at the same time, Bayley rolled off 3 seconds afterwards to try to sell something, but no, we'll get there. But that's the thing. In the War Games, Candy LaRue, she's not a high-level athlete. She's not a great worker. She's not a great talker. She doesn't have a great look or physique or striking size. She's just indie, bland, boring indie. And halftime, she looks like she's confused. The same as her husband, who they're the male and female representatives of bland, boring indie. And I know they need a stooge because Jax is surrounding herself with stooges, but in the fucking War Games. And like I said, Liv gets heat with me But I can see how she gets heat with the fans too, because the angle with Dominic and the promos that she does. And I believe the promos, the whiny, bitchy Valley Girl, whatever the fuck, more from Liv than from Tiffy, because I think Tiffy just gets heat with me on the overacting of the whole gimmick. It's not really, you can tell it's not really her. It's just, she's blatantly trying to be an actress.
Yeah, no, she's really good at performing the fake Tiffany Stratton character with that fake talking style that does not appear real at all, no.
Liv, you could almost think, boy, she's certainly a fucking see you next Tuesday of epic proportions. See, I didn't even make you edit that for YouTube. But anyway, I swear to God, when they started out with, who was it? Was it Fridge and Bailey?
Yes, those were the first two.
Yes. And again, it's hard to do anything when you're trying to work with a fucking recliner. There's only certain ways that gravity is going to make it fall over, and you just got to be along for the ride. But it really got going for me. And I said from the opening bell, but actually I was going to try to give it a minute. But when Naomi came in, that's when the hits kept on coming. Literally. Because
to Naomi's face.
Well, they had a deal that every time one of the girls entered, she would stop and get under the ring and pull something out and throw it in the cage. So now they've got, after, 7 or 8 girls, they've got all the chairs and a table and the garbage in the ring. But Naomi comes in with a kendo stick and a toilet seat. And then half the time, whatever they brought in, they would put down and somebody use it later. But she's wearing a birthday hat because, Brian, I know many of the fans might not have known this. It was her birthday. So she's going into they said it on commentary.
Happy birthday.
So she's going into the cage for a 10-woman war where people are trying to mutilate each other, wearing her fucking hat from her birthday party with a toilet seat and a kendo stick. And from this point, as soon as she steps in with this shit, and Michael Cole called her Tiffany.
That's right.
Michael Cole calls her, well, here's Tiffany's in. And then she takes a big swing and hits the fridge with the kendo stick in the side. And it bounced back and hit Naomi in her own fucking face. and knocked her own birthday hat off. And I said, I got to watch some of this. Oh my God. And so, it was like, bam, she hit Jackson aside and it bounced back and bam, just hit her right in the side of the fucking face. And the hat flies off and she sells it like she's stunned, like, oh shit.
Because she was.
Because she was. And then she tries to get on the fridge, but the fridge comes back and gets Naomi down in the corner and is trying to put the toilet seat over Naomi's head, but she can't figure out how. She's trying to put it over her head without raising the lid because it's the toilet seat and the lid is still on it. And there is the fridge not being able to figure out the basic function of a 2-piece toilet seat. And finally, she got it over Naomi's head. But then somehow within seconds, Naomi had come back and put the seat on her and rubbed her ass in the fridge's face over the top of the toilet seat. And anytime you know...
I always liked when Fez did that.
I think it's one of those things that he learned from Strangler Lewis. And then, did you see the double backdrop where they almost all died?
That's a way to put it, yeah.
So, and again, I understand what they were trying to go for. The Fridge is a big young lady. So if two of the girls double backdrop her, it's reasonable that they should be able to do that. It doesn't kill her aura as a big giant, but it's impressive to see her take that bump. Whatever, they had good intentions. But Naomi and Bailey try to double backdrop Jax. And I would assume that Naomi and Bailey have probably not teamed up on a lot of double backdrops, but they were too far apart. Really, until you get the hang of it, a good rule of thumb is lock arms with the girl you're standing next to, whether left arm or right arm, like you're square dancing, but on the same side. Because they were too far apart, and when the Fridge came in to get her base, because she jumped into it and she was trying, but she needed two shoulder blades, one from each girl, to put both hands on for the push-up, and they needed to stand straight up. But instead, because they were farther apart, she didn't have both hands on both girls at the same time. I think she lost it on Naomi. And so they stood up under her middle and boosted her up anyway, but then she was headed straight down head first with gravity taking its toll. And she barely got her head tucked before she landed on it, while at the same time, the two girls who double backdropped her, Bailey fell forward. And I don't mean like on purpose. I mean, no, she fell from pushing the weight. She was off balance enough because she ended up with a lot of the weight on her because she slipped, Jack slipped off Naomi, that she fell forward onto her face without being able to catch herself. While at the same time, Naomi took a bump backwards because since she stood straight up, didn't hardly have a lot of the weight on her. She lost her balance and almost fell on fucking Jax's goddamn face. So the whole thing looked like a monkey fucking a football. But I've never in 52 years, whatever, of watching wrestling ever seen that exact chain of events happen where two people gave another person a double backdrop. The person who was backdropped was almost hurt, and the persons who did it fell in different directions. Has never happened before in the history of wrestling.
That's the great thing about the modern era. You're seeing things that you never saw before, expanding wrestling's horizons.
They're certainly getting higher.
What are you thinking if you're in the back by the monitor producing this?
I don't know, because we can talk about some of these high points, but just a lot of the regular work, if you can call it that, was off. Even the people, as you said earlier, that are normally kind of okay, it was, there was a lot of sloppy shit. They're also, the girls, there's only been 8 women's WarGames matches to begin with, so none of these girls had been in many, if any. But I mean, just people not being able to punch each other in a convincing fashion, or not being able to just arm drag or scoop slam smoothly without it. In some places, this really did look like a fucking real fight because it looked like people weren't on the same page. And that's what Candy LaRue was next in, and she pitches 2 chairs in, and the Fridge gets the chair, and there comes what you were talking about earlier. I have never seen any professional wrestler of either gender, genre, any size, fake hit people with chairs like this. And she went to hit Naomi, and Naomi put her hands up like she's going to block it, but Jax held up like she was scared all of a sudden, like, oh, I was going to hit her in the wrong place. And then she fucking hit her with a fly tap one place, and then it sounded like bam, like she hit her on the point of her shoulder bone with another one, bam. And then every time she would use these chairs, it was like a senior citizen trying to swat a fly with a newspaper or something. Have you ever, what the fuck was why do it?
Those looked really bad. Again, Nia Jax was really exposed in this match. She was the first one in. She was exposed in this match just how bad she is at some of the basics, including wielding objects.
And then,
right? I mean, that's man. I've seen, Lance Storm. I saw do that once at the ECW arena against Rob Van Dam, and the crowd started groaning, and they didn't want to, but you couldn't avoid it because when they look that fake, that bad, it's bad. It's bad, and Nia Jax didn't know how to do chair shots.
Oh, yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Your chair shots, they suck. Oh, yeah, they're bad. They're bad. Come on. You're kidding because they're bad.
That's kind of in your key. I'm not going to complain about this.
Okay, well, thank you, Brian. So then, when she still continued hitting people with the chair, now I sound like Mickey Mouse. Ha-ha!
You sound like Jim Cornette.
Ha-ha! We're gonna get you, fucks.
Well, back to the women's war games. This is a serious battle between teams.
This is a serious battle for survival.
Do you remember the war games when Tully Blanchard came in with his birthday hat on?
No, I think a fan threw a cup of ice and knocked it off. He was about to. But no, so, by the way, when Candy had come in and got the 2 chairs, and the Fridge went on the spree of chair swats, Candy had lifted up the skirt of the ring and showed like 5 tables and there's toolboxes, and we saw the fire extinguisher. And they had so much stuff in so many different places that several of the girls would get lost trying to find what they were looking for. And it looked so stupid when they're being called in to help their team in this fight, and they don't get in a goddamn cage. They start looking under the ring and then can't find shit and start looking in 2 or 3 different places. Fuck, just come in here and help. The fuck? Anyway, that was when that they set up a couple of chairs in the middle of the ring in a geometric formation. They've learned this. They studied astronomy and how the ancient Greeks used to line their chairs up in conformity with the astrological signs. And then they make Bailey lay on it for 10 minutes or so. And then Candy did her moonsault that you referred to earlier and went right over the fucking top of her. On the way by, she put her hands down on Bailey's stomach. But she cleared... It was like she did a handspring off the ropes with a handspring off Bailey and then landed on the other side of Bailey. I don't know how much more description I can give to the other fucking side of Bailey.
And I'm thinking that looked like it missed. And then on commentary, Craig Ertz is like, she hit that perfectly or whatever he said. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, well, because her hands were, it was a flying double upside down Mil Mascaras vertical chop.
That's what it was.
Is what it was. But at least none of Bailey's weight or none of Candy's weight landed on Bailey. But so then Bianca came in, and the first thing she got was the garbage can, which I thought at this point was apropos, because not only just the people, Keystone Cops, Gilligan's Island shit, hitting themselves in the face with things, but just the general, nobody can get on the same page. And then she also brought the fire extinguisher in, did Bianca, and then the table, and she went to look for other shit, and it had already taken forever, and then they just got the camera off of her for a while. And then she and the Fridge, Bianca again being she, tried to get fancy with the spot with a chair, and Bianca was going to climb up and have the chair and going to flip, and I don't know what the fuck they were doing. Did you see that exchange?
I think I know what you're talking about, and I don't know what they were trying to do either.
But yeah, they got too fancy. It again, in the Kung Fu movie, that they saw in their minds when they were coming up with this horse shit. Oh, that'd be cool. And then Tiffy came in with a trash can and a lid. So at least she's trying to be neat. And they did some more shit. And EO Sky came in. And this was where it, because by this time I'd kind of tuned out on the horribleness and the awfulness, right? And I've kind of zoned off on making notes. But here come EO Sky. And she ran all the way around the second ring to the exact place. Now, these other girls have been looking for shit. They can't find it. But the one purple trash can, it's a special purple trash can. She went all the way around and found that. And it had ropes attached to it so that she could hang it around her neck and climb to the top of the cage while carrying on her back the purple trash can.
Smart.
So she gets to the top of the cage and Candy is up there trying to fight her. And so she leaves the trash can on top of the cage and she gets in a fight with Candy and they end up doing, or try to do a spot where EO Sky is above Candy and Candy is standing on the top rope. And you get what they did. It was going to be that EO Sky was going to do the old sunset flip power bomb, but EO's coming off the cage and Candy's coming off the top rope. And well, EO came over her back and tried to do the sunset flip and Candy didn't go. Candy just held onto the goddamn cage standing on the top rope. And when and EO Sky landed on her feet down below Candy, and you could tell Candy looked back like, oh shit, she went already? And then it's too late, and EO Sky turns over and slaps fucking Candy on her ass. Like, you didn't fucking go. And so she just wasn't there when EO went to do the deal. So EO climbs back up, and she knocks her off some other kind of fucking way. And EO Sky was laughing. Like, what the fuck? Did you forget to goddamn fall down? So then Tiffy and EO did some cartwheels. And then Rochelle came in. She'd come all the way from Minsk for this. And she put another table in the ring and then started looking for something else and finally I think she just got in. I don't know. And finally Rhea Ripley was in next. And they figured out a way to fumble this. I mean, again, if I had sat there and taken careful notes on the previous 10 minutes, I'm sure we could come up with some more examples. But this may be the most egregious what the fuck. They worked, and somehow they thought this was a good idea. They worked a deal where Jax and Rochelle, the two biggest women in the ring, were the only ones up when Rhea was supposed to come in, and they would stand her off so that she couldn't come right in. And so then what she did was she grabs a table on the floor and is trying to slide it in. And I guess she was going to use it as a battering ram to push these people back. But then Rochelle grabs it and is trying to hold it, and they're going to try to do the teeter-totter spot. But Brian, to get a teeter-totter, where does the tipping point have to be? The fulcrum or whatever it may be. But the tipping point on the teeter and the totter has to be in the middle in between teeter and totter, right?
That's usually how a seesaw works, yeah.
Well, they didn't see what I saw because the table was only like a foot in the ring, and Rhea tried to do the thing where it bounces up into Rochelle's face, and she sold it anyway, but it didn't go anywhere. And then She just came on in and the heels pummeled her. And in another fucking ironic situation, hit Rhea Ripley with the toilet seat. So you've got one girl really in this match that is a money drawing megastar. And she gets the pops and she has the great matches and she sells the merchandise and she just delivers performance after performance, injured or well or whatever. And when she gets in the ring for the War Games, it's with a botched furniture spot, and then you shut her down and hit her in the head with a fucking toilet seat? No, because she should have been fucking running people from one side of that cage to the other till she got to goddamn, somewhere or another, the numbers got to her. But so by that point, the crowd was not happy at that point. The live audience, they're all 17,000, however many hundred. And then they did a big 9-way where everybody was doing everything. And not only is Bianca using her ponytail to whip people, but did she have 2 ponytails? One of the other girls was using one?
No, I think she was using Bianca's one ponytail also.
Whoever, God damn it. It was some of the most awkward bullshit I've ever seen outside of wrestling class, and some of those. And then finally, everybody was down except Rhea Ripley, and now it's time for Liv to come in. And boy, you know what? It would have been great if they'd have just got Rhea Ripley in there and let her make a 2-minute fucking comeback and then have everybody down. But then then Liv would come in. They'd be in the same place without some of the worst part of the fucking match. And she is scared shitless, is Liv. So she runs out of the arena and comes back in with a baseball bat. Because I was thinking at least Rhea is still up and Liv, and Rhea can rehabilitate herself in this thing. And then Rhea and Liv have the face-off, and Liv has the bat and swings, and Rhea ducks, and did it booted or whatever. Liv drops the bat. And then before Rhea can get a hold of Liv, the fridge stops Rhea, and they get some fake heat. And then the heels held Rhea, and Liv hit her in the stomach with the baseball bat 7 times in the gut and twice over the back. And Brian, would you say that I'm a larger human being, and potentially in my younger days, about almost 20 years ago, I was probably stronger than Liv Morgan is, right?
I think that's fair to say, yeah.
Especially when I was carrying around 240 pounds or so.
You were larger and more than likely stronger, yes.
And I've hit people in a working context in a wrestling ring in front of fans with a baseball bat, and it's been on video, and it didn't look too bad. And so I have experience of wherein I speak when I say, that ain't a goddamn real baseball bat. And she managed to demonstrate that by hitting her. I don't care how much I love Rhea Ripley. And it wasn't like she was trying to use a real bat and pull these. They got a balsa wood bat, and she hit her 7 times in the stomach. You would have broken all of somebody's ribs. There was no way. Then at that point, everybody in the match hit a move on everybody. And within a minute, Rhea was back up. And they were fucking going for false finishes. How can you be in the wrestling business and hit somebody with a baseball bat and then draw back to hit him again and not think, well, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done? Because if the motherfucker is still alive after you've hit him the first time with a baseball bat, You need to run. And how fake is it if you're going to hit him twice and he's not going to goddamn be carried out on oxygen? But to hit somebody 9 fucking times, what are they thinking? This is supposed to be the professionally run organization. Or did that one just slip by somebody? Did they have a producer who said, okay, go ahead and hit the girl that's going to beat you in the finish over and over with a baseball bat? Nobody will think it's fake. Am I making too much of this?
I mean, not really. It's a match where there's lots of stupid weapons being used nonstop. So maybe because of that, it didn't stand out as much to me. But, I mean, you're right. But that's one of the things of wrestling.
But anyway, Tiffy and EO then went back to the top of the corners of the cages. And it took forever because EO has to put her trash can on. And
phrasing you don't hear of very often.
You don't hear those words in that order often. But so Tiffy was just standing up there, obviously waiting for a synchronized spot where she and EO wearing the trash can would jump off together. And again, there was 4 girls waiting to catch one, 4 girls waiting to catch the other, and they had to fucking all stagger together. And as Jim Ross said, coil up like quail. And wait for this stupid shit. And then the one girl Tiffy dives off, and the other idiot is wearing a fucking garbage can on her head and does a back fall. And I want to know, did they draw straws to see which ones was going to catch the fucking idiot in the garbage can? If you're 15 feet in the air and you're wearing a garbage can, Brian, and you fall off whatever you're standing on, as much as I love you as a friend, and in a platonic way, I'm getting the fuck out of the way of you. Because that garbage can is going to bust me wide fucking open from asshole to appetite. I don't want any part of it. And I fast forwarded there to the finish. It was another minute or so.
So that was it. That's what got you to fast forward?
Yes, that was it. But there was only like 2 minutes left. And then the finish was Rhea Ripley giving Liv the riptide off the top rope through a fucking table 1, 2, 3. And at least it was the right finish. But good God, as DDP might say. What I've never seen, if wrestling was arrested on a charge of fakery, then you just play this fucking match. And they would be convicted on all counts. And we were 40 minutes into the show by the time that was, well, it was not 40 minutes into the show. That was 40 fucking minutes from
asshole to appetite.
Asshole to appetite. Yeah. Your closing thoughts on that closing fucking contest.
It's interesting that WWE let the 2 big heels for the men's and women's divisions take pinfalls in this match, almost like they think it doesn't really hurt anyone. The match was ridiculous. The women should have just been in a traditional Survivor Series match. It would have gotten everything done. But instead it was WarGames because the men have WarGames. But whenever you do something like this, it exposes the fact that there aren't a lot of elite female workers, and unfortunately, a lot of the times that just means working as good as most of the top men wrestlers. Rhea Ripley's there.
Besides that, did they have to make up for it by taking further shine off the men's match by making it comedy too, with a toilet seat and a special colored trash can and the fire extinguisher spot that we forgot?
Oh, the kendo stick. The kendo stick was colored like Naomi.
Oh yes, the glow in the dark fluorescent kendo stick. Well. Maybe that's why that, she hit her own self in the face with it. It was attracted to her.
I don't know if that's how fluorescents work. Is that how they work?
Well, yeah, it's opposites attract, and DJ Hepcat will tell you that.
No, that's not who it was. It was DJ Scat Cat.
Scat Cat, Hepcat. I
Hepcat.
didn't think we could talk about scat on YouTube.
This is your show.
Thoughts? Yeah,
your show.
No, you were making a point that I interrupted.
You said you was something about you loving scat. You wanted to sing something?
No. I said opposites attract. Because
you like Cab Calloway?
Hidey, ho.
He used to live in Point Lookout. That's right.
Hidey, hi.
But yeah, I mean,
yeah.
This is this match is a good example of the problems with the women just doing what the men do just because they have to, because it has to be even Steven. There aren't a lot of women who seemingly could pull this off and have again, beyond the gimmicks, it was just bad working. If you watched what was happening here. But it was also quite the spectacle, AEW style. But that was the opening match.
Well, and that kind of got a taste in your mouth, but I was hoping the next one would be a little bit of a palate cleanser. And also because since I'd spent so much time and effort on that thing, and I was afraid this was going to go extraordinarily long, I decided the U.S. title match with LA Knight and Shaky Nakamura, I'll trade that one for the girls match. I'm not going to sit through girls and Nakamura, right? But little did I know this was going to be the shortest match on the show. And also, by the way, the bell rang for match number 2 an hour and 8 minutes into the pay-per-view.
Well, that's part of the story. The fact that every match has 15-minute gaps in between them.
Well, yeah, and they do. You have to have some time. The history packages are important, or pre-match interviews, if that is the case, are important. A lot of times now,
commercials.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The important things in a pay-per-view or premium live event or whatever, the history package, so you know why the match is taking place, comments from the participants. I can buy that. And every once in a while, plug for an upcoming event. But goddamn, we are beaten to death with sponsorships and commercials and products and services. And was it on this or was it on SmackDown? Cricket has a chair-shaped cell phone now. Have you seen this?
I did see this. This was on the pay-per-view. Because I thought it was just some kind of weird spoof commercial that wasn't funny, and then it was like, oh no, they're really seriously selling this shit.
So anyway.
And by the way, that must have been in the works for a while, because the commercial that they aired for it had Chad Gable and Otis together. Right? They've been broken up for months.
I didn't even think about that. I was too busy shaking my head at a chair-shaped cell phone. But I guess, if I fold my phone out at somebody in public, they'll think I mean business. I'm going to hit them with a folding phone. Because my phone still folds, Brian. Normally, people kind of snicker if they see that, if I'm out and about and have to make a phone call on the fly, not next to my God-given landline in my own home, my castle.
They're just going to think you're a drug dealer.
Well, how would I be able to if I had the drugs in a little bitty flip phone?
Because that looks like a burner phone. That's what a burner phone is. People usually use like flip phones and cheap.
No, I've tried. This thing won't catch fire for anything. I've tried a hammer. I've tried setting it on fire. Nothing works. But anyway, LA Knight was wrestling Nakamura. And I swear to God, this didn't last 10 minutes. And they were fighting in between the rings that are set up together, and they've got that little metal. I'm hoping it's lightweight aluminum. I would, hope they wouldn't put goddamn iron and steel in the middle of there. They're building a ramp of steel in the middle of the two rings. But they're fighting in between the two rings, and Shaky eye gouges him and gives him the scorpion death drop, right? That's what that backwards DDT thing is. That people would know it by that name because Sting did it. Sting's over. And he did that on the steel booma shakalaka, and then rolled him in a ring and kicked him in the head 1, 2, 3. And on fast forward, it looked like Shaky was in control of most of this thing. If I'd have known it was going to be that short, I might have actually watched it, but at the same time, what? Shaky Nakamura, the new U.S. champion, beats LA Knight. The question now is, who has LA Knight personally offended, and why is his name Triple H? What issue has there been some dalliance with young Stephanie? What could you...
Young?
Well, has there been some dalliance with middle-aged Stephanie? What could you do as a person to make people so dislike you that they will... You rehab yourself from being the chairman of a male modeling agency named Max Dupree to go back to your previous gimmick and get over with the people, and they're cheering and they're chanting. And then you win the U.S. title, and then you work with mid-card guys and get stuck working with nobody in the main events, and then get beat in 10 minutes by this fucking fellow.
You can tell you're upset. You keep hitting the desk or something.
I'm doing this with my hands here.
Don't look at it as a bad thing. Don't look at it as a bad thing.
What somebody doesn't like him on a personal level.
Maybe this is a way of freshening him up because he has had no one to feud with. Maybe LA Knight, right now, with that going on, would be better chasing for the title than holding the title. What do you say to that?
I think that a lot of people at this point are figuring, well, hopefully if he goes ahead and chases for that title, when he gets back with it, he'll let me know. I mean, they've done nothing to present him as a smart... When he rolled in the ring and the guy just spit in his face, boom, you're blind. See there? And then he gets beat the next night. And he's worked with mid-card talent at best since then. And the thing, who was it? Logan Paul was the last major main event level guy that he's worked with that he won the belt from. And now you don't see his interviews as much or his promos. You don't see him in the main event of anything. And then he gets beat by this fucking guy. I'm saying LA Knight has personally offended someone with 3 initials. It's got to be.
All right. Well, that was the exciting LA Knight Shinsuke Nakamura match. We'll see where that feud goes.
As a matter of fact, you want to bet me?
Uh-oh.
You want to bet me there, pal?
Pal?
Well, I'm using wrestling terminology now. You ought to know that, pal.
Oh, excuse me.
You want to bet me that LA Knight has possibly,
yes.
Possibly, like I said, for Triple H to be that mad, has he discovered that Stephanie is one of the people going, yeah? Or did LA Knight, did he accidentally become a porch pirate and steal the kids' Christmas presents off the porch when they were delivered by Amazon up there at the Triple H estate? What could have happened? But I'm betting you.
Yeah, where's the bettingness exactly?
I'm betting you that LA Knight has done something to piss off the Triple H regime, and I bet you I could get odds at the casino on it. What do you think?
I don't know about that, and if you were at a casino, that sounds like it may not be the most exciting game, but if you want to rock like you do at the casino, DraftKings Casino is there for you wherever you are.
Well, that's right, because you don't have to go to the casino. The casino can come to you. Here come the casino. Here come the casino. Because right now, DraftKings is offering a warm welcome at DraftKings Casino to new players with $100 instantly in casino credits with just a $10 wager. That's for the new players, you newbies out there. You're going to get 10 to 1. You're going to get rewarded. But everybody can get in on the action with a holiday reward every week that's up for grabs. You got to sign up with the code Cornette. That's my last name. You better know how to spell it if you're listening to this program, because the holiday cheer is here only on DraftKings Casino. You're going to unwrap everything on your list, the exclusive games, huge jackpots, exciting rewards, and potentially betting on where LA Knight lands next whenever they finish him up and kick him out the door. Only again on DraftKings, he'll be kicked right into the casino. LA Knight could be a dealer. Not a dealer like, a card dealer or a casino dealer. A dealer in casinos. Brian, have you got a gambling problem, or do you know anybody that wants to talk about one?
Yeah, this guy.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. 21 and over. Physically present in Connecticut, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia only. Void in Ontario. Eligibility restrictions apply. New customers only. Opt-in required. Casino credits are non-withdrawable and expire in 168 hours. Terms at casino.draftkings.com/promos.
I'm thinking they ought to open a brick and mortar casino too.
And no, I don't have a gambling problem.
Well, you got no problem gambling. You do it all the time.
You want to bet?
Nothing. Yeah, well, exactly. Nothing gets in the way of my gambling. I have no problem with it whatsoever.
Well, once again, the crown is yours at the casino, at home.
With the code of Cornette, DraftKings Casino, you download that in some fashion on your phone or device.
It's an app.
The kids have.
It's an app, yes.
Yes. A lot of the children are doing that these days, from what I hear.
Well, back to the Survivor Series.
Oh, have we survived yet? No, we are now here here is one of the things. Remember, I said I liked some things more than I thought that I might. And here's one of the things that I liked more than I thought that I might. A triple threat match. For once, this kind of worked. Sheamus and Ludwig Kaiser and Braun Breaker for the Intercontinental title, and they've been doing the deals on TV each week where they've, inserted themselves in the other's business. And normally I prefer singles matches, and I love to see Braun Breaker work with either one of these guys. But at the same time, this worked. At the start, it kind of sort of looked the same for the first few minutes. They were going 100 miles an hour, and they were kind of rushing and had to get the chairs in there quick. But then it started being more about the guys that were in this rather than the stunts they were getting. They were doing each other's trademark shit rather than just going for stunts and objects and furniture. And you've got Sheamus as a babyface. Ludwig Kaiser obviously is a heel. Braun Breaker is a heel, but he's the kind of heel they're already liking, they're already barking for. He's the kind of guy that in this match, because there is an issue, an existing issue with both these guys, the other heel did for getting in his fucking way. He doesn't have to change or alter anything that he does as the normal heel he is to, in certain situations, have the people cheering for him. It's not fake, it's just happening. Does that make sense to you?
I think so.
It's hard to explain to people without sitting down with a video and a pointer and being able to rewind and everything, but he's so good. I think he's my favorite wrestler now. Because he's so good at everything at this stage of the game. He's so progressed at so far. And not only with, the physical attributes, but the way he thinks, the way he reacts, the facial expressions, the way that he knows how to sometimes extricate himself out of something. He's ahead of his time. But also, because again, he can do the same shit. It depends on who he's working with as to whether they're cheering or booing what he's doing. And he's going to be huge fucking money. Chisel that in some kind of stone and hold me to it in 3 or 4 years, and you can kiss my ass when it comes true. And like I said, when they're doing their shit, they're not just doing stunts. Braun does the thing where he leaps off the apron and clotheslines a guy over the announce desk. Well, this was a three-way, so he clotheslined both of them. And they all three went over the fucking desk. And then Sheamus started making a big comeback on the floor, and the fans loved that. And they were chanting, "This is awesome." And Kaiser, I think, works harder than anybody, especially with his facial expressions and just that stick up his ass posture he's got is, And Braun hits the Breakensteiner. And then, he runs into a chair that's been put in the corner, and Sheamus hits the kick, and they think he's got it, but Kaiser pulls the referee out to the floor. And then Kaiser wears Sheamus out with a shillelagh. Good Lord. And Sheamus comes back with a knee lift and gets a 2 count. And again, more "This is awesome." But they were doing each other's stuff, and everybody stayed true to form, and nobody was. It was entertaining enough that I wasn't sitting there going, "Well, where's the other fucking guy?" Disappeared for 10 minutes. Because they kept it moving, and they didn't just have those obvious bullshit spots like in most of these. So anyway, finally, Kaiser hit his finish on Sheamus, but Braun hit a spear on Kaiser, and then hit a spear on Sheamus in 1, 2, 3. And he wins and he retains. And I mean, again, knock on wood that he stays injury free. And this guy's the future of the fucking business. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was all right, but hopefully this is the last time we see him in there with Sheamus or Ludwig for a very long while, because it feels like these guys have all been together for a bit.
Well, that's why I'm hoping this is like the old days, and some of these are blow-offs. On the big show, you get the resolution. Braun won, moving on. But, but again, I take pleasure in watching Braun Breaker just move around the ring because it's so unusual that anybody is that good these days. So that make me sound sad. I have misty memories of long days of yore when people were actually good at this shit.
Well, there's still more of this show. Maybe you like some more of this show.
Oh, so moving along.
In English, yeah.
Here's what you're saying. Well, we're at the world title match. Gunther and Damian Priest. That's where we're at for the world title. And Gunther is my co-favorite wrestler. Because he and Braun Breaker, you can always count on to do the shit that they should do. And that's another rare quality these days. I noticed at this point the ring announcer, now that Sam Irvin, old Senator Sam Irvin, now that she's gone, Alicia Taylor, does she always have hair that looks like that? Did you see that hair?
Yeah, that's kind of her thing. She's a big Don King fan.
The fuck? It looked like she'd been, fried in Old Sparky. And they asked for "well done." But she ain't getting it like Samantha was for me with that Drano gargling thing.
I'm telling you, that guy I saw at the Jake Paul Tyson fight, Big Mo, he'll be taller than all the wrestlers. It was so different. Everyone's kind of doing the same kind of thing now. It was more old school, but it worked.
What about if he just sat down and did it? Ain't a law they got to stand up?
What if he stands on the floor, but the wrestlers are in the ring?
There you go. That's the way I did fill in at the last minute the first time I did announcing at Louisville Gardens when I was 17 or whatever. I was 16. Maybe I was scared shitless. I just stayed in the corners because I was ringing the bell too.
You didn't get in the ring?
Fuck no.
That's weird.
And I was standing at ringside. Well, I had one hand on the bell, the other hand on the microphone, and I'll be over here. I mean, there's 5,000 people there. I was like, me get in the fucking ring. Anyhow, so Gunther is smart, and that's no secret. Be different, don't rush, and wrestling is your product. As what they say on the marquee is wrestling. And that's, he was obviously leading this. And we've talked about how Priest needs a higher gear, needs to, crank it up in these big moments or whatever. This was one of the better matches that Priest is going to have with anybody, I would think. This probably helped him. It didn't hurt him, certainly. I don't know whether it's going to get him all the way there, but it's at the same time, I'm not only looking at, but I'm sensing that the fans are looking at. Here is the kind of the same thing I'm looking at. Here is one of the best wrestlers in the world really trying to make Damian Priest look good. Does that make any sense to you?
It makes sense.
I did. He did do some of the things we said. He did go to a higher gear. Priest. This was very serious, and they worked it, and they told a story. But I think the thing is, it's just natural. It was that way with Ric Flair. It was that way with Dusty Rhodes. It was that way with Jerry Lawler. It was that way with the top guy in any territory, really, at any point in the territory, the very top guy. Whoever he was working with, unless it was someone else of that status, you were looking at him regardless of what was going on. And I'm drawn to Gunther. I'm drawn to me keeping this thing kind of on track, in gear, the one that has the body language, the one that, but when Priest would get his chance to fire up or make a comeback, his chops and his forearms had some fire and steam to them more than normal. And you got to have a good heel that say, come on, come on, come on. In that accent like that, come on, come on. But they worked the deal that Priest had a bad shoulder. And as a matter of fact, they worked it so good that at one point, Priest hit Gunther with a shoulder tackle and sold the shoulder, right? And you could see the referee come up to him like, are you okay? And he had to look at the referee, and he broke his expression for a minute, and he put his hand out. He's like, yeah, I'm good. But anyway, Gunther stayed on him. He's very aggressive. Priest had to fight back. Gunther kept trying to go for the sleepers, the power bombs. And finally, Priest hit that Rana off the top and finally hit the razor's edge. He got the 2 count. But then he couldn't choke slam him because of the bad shoulder. And by this point, they had worked it where when Gunther grabbed the double wrist lock and Priest was trying to fight out and got the ropes, there was a big pop for the rope break. But they had, if you heard it, there were dueling chants. Let's go Gunther, Damian Priest, or however, Gunther, Priest, whatever they were fucking doing. Because people like Gunther, because he's one of those guys you can tell he's fucking good.
Also, the more he talks, I think he's going to get those kind of reactions because he's a smartass.
Yeah.
And that resonates.
Especially with certain people, apparently. There, Mr. Alec. So anyway, Gunther goes for the superplex. Priest blocks him. Gunther falls into the ring, and Priest falls to the floor and sells the arm, and the crowd chants, "You fucked up." And the referee went to Gunther, who was in the ring, and here came Finn Balor and did a double stomp on Priest off of the stairs onto the floor. And then Gunther came out and gave Finn the big boot and rolled Priest in and hit him with the power bomb and put the sleeper on, and referee called for the bell. Priest was out. I know they're trying to give Priest an out there, but they're kind of blatant. By the way, here's Finn Balor, boom. And then the referee sees Gunther. That's what I'm saying. The referee turns around and doesn't see Priest laying there where he was before he turned his back. The referee turns around and sees Priest laying there, but Finn Balor standing over him. Gunther's giving him the boot. So if the heel wants to come out and interfere, okay, that's fine. You're giving the guy an out. But then get out of the heel doesn't need to kick the other heel out of ringside because he's not affiliated. Gunther may not have wanted the help, but don't let the referee see the other guy's more important to me. Anyway, nevertheless, Gunther triumphs. Priest did a pretty good job. Not a bad fucking match. That was my evaluation of the whole thing. Now pick it apart.
There's nothing to really pick apart. It was fine. Damian Priest needs something else for a while, and they got to finish whatever they're doing, him and Finn Balor. I guess maybe they're on the road to finally doing that. But I didn't think he was going to win. He's been lacking fire. Let's see what happens. What's next for Gunther? I guess that's the bigger question. Because they're talking about on commentary that the Cody loss affected him.
Well, hopefully that will be dropped fairly quickly, and it'll just have been kind of a kind of a weakness to show for this match, so people maybe gave Damian Priest a little bit more chance at it. But now that that's over, he doesn't need a weakness or whatever. We got fucked out of Gunther and Brock Lesnar, and I want to see that match worse than I want to cure my goddamn hemorrhoids. Anyway, it's time for the main event. Brian, are you ready for it? Are you ready, Brian? Are you I said, are you ready?
Well, what got into you today? I didn't know you were going to like this pay-per-view so much. Yes, I am ready to talk about the big WarGames main event, men versus men. WarGames.
Men versus men. I just told you I wasn't going to take anything much seriously today, and I think I've accomplished that. And this is back when men were men and the sheep were scared, back in the original days of the WarGames. The old bloodline, the new bloodline, plus others, Solo, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, Jacob Fatu, and their guest star Bronson Reed against Roman Reigns, Jay and Jimmy Uso, Sami Zayn, and their guest star CM Punk. And all the heels came out together, which I liked. With the showman in me, I understand you got to have the separate entrances. So they had Sammy, they had Jimmy, then they had Like Mussolini. But it really wasn't time, and they had no screen. It was like, the screen was so small because, did I mention all the thousands of people that jammed into the building? They didn't have room for a screen. But it wasn't, a big entrance. He came over, pie-faced Bronson Reed. And then Roman came out, and they stop. They don't even go to the ring. They stop at the entranceway that they have, such as it is, and get in the cage until it's time to be led into the other cage. Which, again, I think is a bit of a hat on a hat. But then I guess they wouldn't be able to pull off having the whole Home Depot under the ring and everybody pulling shit out if they were all free at ringside, right? Anyway, Roman came out and the four baby faces got in a cage, and then they gave Jay the entrance from the top of the arena with the camera follow and the waving and the yeeting. And boy, that was a heck of a fucking crowd. There was a lot of people in that. Did I mention there was a lot of people in that building? And they yeeted and they waved. And again, it's not very WarGamesy, but when you got something going on like that, because Jey Uso is bugging the shit out of me with his work. I think I've mentioned this a time or two. But goddamn, he's over. I just wish he'd tighten up a few of these things, right? But Jay started with Tama, who briefly adopted the hands and knees Antonio Inoki Muhammad Ali defense. I thought there, what was he doing? Crawling around on his fucking hands and knees.
There's something about him, the noises he makes, the way he moves around. I get a kick out of him.
I get no kick from champagne.
Remember, before Jacob Fatu showed up, he was
the weird one.
He was like the weirdo crazy guy in the group, yeah.
It looks like Tonga Loa came into the group because real estate didn't work out, doesn't it?
He seems like such a nice guy.
Yeah, I just see. Yeah.
Whenever I see him, like, that bloodline guy seems like a nice guy.
He's always looking over his shoulder. What am I supposed to do again? So anyway, they spent 5 minutes or whatever kicking the shit out of each other to Jay and Tama Tonga. And then Bronson Reed was next in because obviously the heels got the advantage, at least in this one. And he came in with 5 chairs and then just flattened Jey Uso with a belly bump and beat him up with a chair. And they 2-on-1'd Jey Uso, him and old Tama, until what you would imagine would happen. Jimmy was next, and he came straight in and made a comeback on both of the heels. And the Usos are looking pretty good, but also at least every babyface guy didn't have to come in with, the entire junkyard tied around his neck, right? They're just coming in to fight. This wasn't, which you would think if they were going to gimmick shit up, this would have been more gimmick than the girls' match, but it would get more gimmicky, but at least the baby faces weren't bringing the shit in too. But basically, it was the 2 Usos against the other guys, and then Tonga Loa was getting ready to enter the next time, and Solo stopped him and gave the signal to the werewolf, Jacob Fatu, to come on down. And Jacob came in and pretty much beat up both the Usos, and he's amazing. Whether he was not particularly selling stuff, some of the stuff they were doing, or just his stuff. Again, to me, he's the jewel in the family. And then the heels got to heat on the baby faces. But then when it was time for the next babyface entrant, Punk was, warmed up and ready, right? And he's about to take the step, and Roman stuck his hand out and blocked him and signaled to Sammy, and Sammy kind of sneaks out, not wanting to offend anybody. So much of this stuff they just take from real life. There's Punk and Roman are 2 top guys that would glare at each other menacingly over a spot, whereas Sammy is just the guy that was to sneak out and not piss anybody off. And Sammy came in and made an athletic comeback. He didn't need a bunch of gimmicks. And the fans then started chanting the ole, ole, ole deal. And then if anything bad was going to happen, it would have happened next. Tonga Loa came in. And he slid in a table and then another one, and Fatu was helping set him up. But there was then this was the glaring part of the men's match. I don't know where there was so much time and momentum lost for the sake of furniture that would be, it's not integral to the story. You don't have to do every single piece of it. And there's a 10-second pop and one replay, but when you've got momentum going and you slow it down to do that, to set something up later on, you see where I'm saying? Are you backing up, Brian? You think, as a viewer, as the typical fan in the audience that you are?
I don't think I'm backing up. No.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a loss of momentum to you.
Wait, maybe I lost where the point started here.
Well, maybe I was.
You're saying what is a loss of momentum?
Speaking gibberish.
Yeah.
When they've got something going, and instead of continuing it, they've got a new guy coming in, and instead they've all got to start looking for more furniture instead of just doing some. Yeah. Remember when, traditionally, before the WarGames got a hat on a hat, what would happen is if the odds were even, the baby faces would be shining. So when the next heel came in, he would come in with some sense of urgency to stop the baby faces.
And they were around ringside. They weren't in a cage over by the entranceway.
Well, yes, but they were still coming into the fight, and vice versa. When the fucking baby faces were down and the baby face got the chance to come in, he would get in as quick as he could and make a big comeback. But they just come in and they're starting to look for shit under the ring, and they're setting up tables or shop class projects, and it loses momentum, doesn't it?
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay, well, that's the way that I was trying to say it. Don't hold me to shit that I said the way that I said it.
I know they changed everything, but I thought WarGames worked the way it was, with a cage on the roof so guys don't break their ankles or whatever happened later on here. And also with the guys around ringside, shaking the cage, yelling, making
Yes.
noise. Not like all put together in a little booth. I don't know.
Well, they were, I've got a secret, the isolation booth.
Yeah, exactly.
Principle they stole. But no, it was fine. And also, again, with a top on it instead of, because now you won't have people diving off and breaking their bones. But anyway, everybody tossed a bunch of junk around. And then it was time for either Punk or Roman was left. And the door opened. And you saw that Roman started to walk out, but then Punk shouldered right past him. He's going. And Roman's like, ugh. And Punk kind of stalked to the ring, and the heels were going to block him from going in. And so Punk goes back down the stairs, goes under the ring, and gets the toolbox, and comes in and hits everybody in the head with the fucking toolbox. It was his choice, I'm sure. But I would have loved to see something that you could swing a little easier to, than the toolbox. I don't know. But you gotta stick to the list of things that do belong under a ring. So there you go. But he beat the shit out of Tonga Loa with the toolbox, and then he bulldogged Jacob onto the toolbox, and Jacob popped up and didn't sell that, and Samoan dropped Punk. So Jacob is still a monster. And then it was time for Solo. And he slammed the door on everybody's head. Sammy first, and then one of the Usos, the other Usos, and he got in and directed traffic to tell the other heels what to do and how to get the heat. And Jacob hits a moonsault, and Bronson Reed hits a splash, and all the baby faces are down. And then Solo takes a chain and a padlock and locks the cage door, which now, normally the WarGames cage door was locked, and then the referee would have the key and he would open it whenever it was time for anybody to go in. Well, now since they've got the other guys locked in the small cages as teams, do they not have the cage door still locked at ringside and unlock it when somebody's supposed to go in, or did you notice that detail?
I didn't notice, actually.
Because if I hope he had it was his own chain and his own lock, but I'm thinking that maybe they unlocked the door to let him in or whatever, but he locked the door. And so that meant that Roman wasn't going to be able to get in. But then Roman was up, and we got the OTC chance. But when Roman came down the aisle, he looked like it was a surprise to him that he couldn't open the door. But I guess he was far enough away he couldn't see the monitor. So he didn't know that Solo had put a chain and a lock on the door. So then he decided, well, I'm going to have to start climbing. If I'd have been the tribal chief, I would have asked for the bolt cutters first, wouldn't you?
I guess. I hadn't thought of that.
Well, because they brought them out here later on, the ring crew.
Well, that's true. That's true, yeah.
The ring crew always has a pair of bolt cutters.
Maybe he wasn't paying attention. He thought all the tools had been brought into the ring already.
Well, I think there's always a set of bolt cutters in a major arena that size. And see, that's the thing. If Roman Reigns, if he'd have had the wise man out there at that point, he would have thought of that, because it could have been like the old bull and the young bull. The old bull and the young bull on top of the hill. The young bull says, hey, Pop, let's go down there in that pasture and run down there and fuck one of them cows. And the old bull says, son, let's walk down there and fuck all of them. Instead of climbing over the cage, he could have just said, I'll just stand here until you bring me those bolt cutters. Couldn't he now?
I guess so. This has been your cow fucking update. What a example to use there.
But anyway, he's climbing that cage. And he nails the Tongas off, and he nails Reed off, and he nails Jacob. And then Solo. And now he's in the cage, and he comes off the top and he levels all the heels and he makes a big comeback, and boom, boom, boom. and all the heels take a bump, and then he goes over and he's helping up all the baby faces, regrouping his team, and he helps Sammy and Jay, and he walks right past Punk like, yeah, man. And then Jimmy and Punk gets up on his own, and they start to argue, Punk and Roman. Not like violently, but like, hey, you got a problem? You got a problem with that? And here comes Heyman waddling down the aisle. Hitchcock is making his cameo, and he pleaded with them. While the crew got the bolt cutters, got the lock off the door. And he pleaded with them, you know what this means, blah, blah, blah. So now Punk and Roman turned, they were on the same page. They turned to look at their opposing team as the War Games begins. Ding, ding, ding. And then they fight some more. And they teased again the Punk and Roman situation where they set up a spot where Roman was going to duck and spear Solo while Punk was going to go to sleep Fatu, and Solo was to move out of the way, and Roman would spear Punk out from under the GTS attempt, which they did, but there's a little bobble there. And then Solo spiked Roman and got a 2 count. And then Jacob missed a moonsault, like his 3rd or 4th of the evening, and sold his knee big time. So that Bronson could put Roman. Well, go ahead.
When you say he missed the moonsault, he fell and his leg hit the rope and he started selling. And the only reason I didn't think he was immediately hurt was the referee didn't come over for a little while.
Oh, yeah. Well, remember, but the last time that everybody's, oh my God, he's broken his leg. This motherfucker can sell. I'm telling you, he's a genetic marvel. He knows all this shit somehow subconsciously. Because he was up about, a minute and a half later or whatever, doing shit that you wouldn't be able to do if you'd have fucked your leg up, right? But it's nice that people worry about him. But then that's why I was saying, again, Reed gets on top of the fucking cage. He's 380 pounds. He gets all the way on top of the cage. Roman is standing or laying on the table. And Reed comes off, and that's where Punk jumps up and pulls Roman off the table. And the timing was perfect on that. It was like the movie scene where you pull the guy to the mine and the explosion comes right behind him. All the shit blasts across and barely misses him. And a table exploded here. Bronson Reed went through it. Remember what I was saying about Bronson Reed being a valuable talent, but a guy like Hobbs has more upside over in AEW because Reed, that size, he's doing this shit. His joints ain't going to last. His joints ain't going to last.
Well, again, when you say he's doing this shit, you're not talking about just wrestling. You're talking about the spots he's doing.
No, I'm doing it, coming off the top of a fucking cage through a table at 380 pounds or whatever is with the shit that I'm talking about that he's doing. But anyway, they have perfect spots. People started chanting CM Punk because he had saved Roman. So at that point, there's Roman and Punk laying there. And Punk has just saved him. So Roman gets up and helps Punk up now this time. And that's what we're talking about, kids. When we say you got to tell a story with some of that, there has to be some meaning to some shit that happens. They're starting to grow on each other. Punk saved the guy, almost sacrificed himself, blah, blah, blah. And then Solo spiked Roman like twice, but the Usos saved him. And the Usos took out Fatu, and Jimmy came off the top of the cage and splashed him through a fucking table. And I believe, was that the one that broke his toe or some bone in his foot?
I'm not sure.
One of the Usos broke a toe or something on one of these splashes.
It may be the one then, yeah.
He may be the one.
That may be the one.
Well, or it may be the other one. But it's a wonder it wasn't both of them. And then the people are, this is awesome. This is awesome because Now the baby faces are up and the most of the heels have been wiped out, and finally there's Solo left all by himself. The other heels have been dealt with, and all 5 faces are up, and the people are chanting, "You fucked up! I mean, they're with it." And Roman tells Solo, "Come on now, bigger boy, bigger boy." And Solo goes for the spike, and Jimmy super kicks him, and Jay super kicks him, and both of them super kick him, and Sammy gives him the big kick in the corner, and Punk hits him with the go to sleep, and then Roman spears him and covers him 1, 2, 3. And that's a fucking finish. It built, and if it was AEW, he would have kicked out, and they would have done 7 other things.
What'd you think of the idea of beating Solo? Again, he did take everyone's finisher one after another, so it's not like just one person beat him, but...
Well, yeah.
The idea of beating him and where you go from here.
I think they had to here, because think about that. They would have not only been... I can understand potentially foiling Roman's return, although I don't think that it would have been right. I can understand the thought process by saying, well, maybe we can beat Roman. But with Punk's return from a couple months, but still, and him doing the favor for Heyman and that being part of the story, what kind of fucking, unless that they were going to break Punk and Roman up in this, which may have still been up in the air. We didn't know what they were going to do. There's no way that Punk could have been on the losing side if he was trying to help him win, right? Because then that would have killed the favor story with Paul and a lot of things. So they figured out a way that they could neutralize the werewolf in sufficient fashion that, and then the other guys could be down, and then they could all 5 beat Solo. Because the baby faces had to win here, and I think they did it well. I like this, except some of the egregious, how many tables can we break? And
Bronson Reed getting hurt when he's finally getting a push and it's finally working.
Yeah, that we didn't need that. There was but again, girls had jumped off the top of the cage before these guys did. So why anyway, I guarantee you if a girl had jumped off the scaffold at Starrcade 86 in the first match before I went up there, I'd have said, fuck it, I'm not doing it. They've already done it anyway.
Bubba might have caught her.
Well, maybe it'd been more possible. But anyway, then all the baby faces hugged, except for Punk. But then they all hugged Punk, except for Roman. But then there was the big milk, and Roman offered the hand, and Punk took it. And we got the big pop, and everybody put up the one finger except for Punk, who did his go-to-sleep pose. And on the way out of the cage, Punk hugged Heyman, and they reiterated to each other where the camera microphone could hear that Paul owes a favor. And ended up, they did all of that we have talked about in 3 hours and 30 minutes. So it was still...
with like 2 hours of commercial breaks.
Yes. It was still 2 hours shorter than that fiasco that we watched the previous week from AEW. One of the worst pay-per-views. It was the most overdone matches with the fakest shit and the most unbelievable fucking survivals of not only bumps, but attempted murder over and over until you couldn't even remember who started the thing. Or here, they sold out. They had millions of people watching, and they were in and out of there in 3.5 hours.
Well, that was the WWE Survivor Series, the Thanksgiving time tradition. And with that, let's go to time travel. All right, we are here in the future, an exciting time, an exciting future. World War III is happening, and we are here.
We didn't have to time travel. We just stopped to take a piss. You all of a sudden, you just want any excuse to turn into Richie Blackmore.
You were just telling me off the air, Brian, I could never admit it on the air, but you play so good. I really like your stuff. Stace wants me to get her a tape of your stuff for her birthday next year. And then we get on the air and all of a sudden it's, oh, you stink. You stink.
No, see, I'm giving an accurate representation. But you lie through your teeth and tell people that I can't sing when I demonstrate that I can often here on the program. So
I'm not lying through my teeth. My mouth is open.
Well, in that case, I got something to you. But nevertheless, we need to talk about more things.
Yes, we do.
Because can you explain it to me? Why? Because is it, Uncle Huck, that when the AEW program is on Wednesday night, we get the ratings on Thursday afternoon, evening, or whatever. But when that Thursday is a holiday, we don't get them for 5 more fucking days. We don't get them on a Monday afternoon. And we've successfully dicked around on this program until they've been inseminated or disseminated, as the case may be. But why does one holiday back shit up? I mean, I can understand if you ate too much of the broccoli and cheese casserole, you'd be backed up. But why are the ratings backed up till the following Monday? Friday and Saturday were perfectly good days.
That's one of those perks for working at Nielsen. Thanksgiving is come back to work whenever the fuck you feel like it.
Well, what about all the big Thanksgiving football contests and matches and things and such?
Those things and such happened, and I don't know their ratings because I wasn't really looking into their ratings.
But they need to know, too. They're important people, not just us lowly little wrestling broadcasters and perpetrators.
Forget about the programs. The advertisers need to know.
Yeah.
They want to know.
They have to know.
Well, I'm assuming you're talking about AEW Dynamite, and we're going to do the ratings here.
Yes, this is finally, the day before Thanksgiving Dynamite, finally the ratings have been revealed. Were they trying to keep them secret?
Well, there's a few things to talk about here, and, we have been very, very critical of the programming of late. I mean, we've been critical of all year. It's been just a downward slide of bad AEW Dynamites. But lately, it seems to have really gone off the edge. And now we're about to get a fucking tournament. So
two tournaments. The girls' tournament is inside the other kind of tournament.
It's funny. For a long time, it lasted about a year, I'd say. Whenever you criticized AEW, you started hearing one big thing back at you. Wembley! For a while, it was no matter what you say, no matter how critical you are, it doesn't matter. Wembley. They got all those people into London for that stadium show. You know what the new Wembley is?
I'm waiting for you to tell me.
550 million! That somehow has become the justification for anything. Was the show bad? So what? They got 550 million. I'm not interested, and I think all the characters aren't working. Well, TBS gave them 550 million, so they're happy. And that's going to run out pretty soon as a argument. It seems to be the main argument for Dave Meltzer with everything. That and asking questions to answer questions in a condescending way. But 550... which was given to them in the midst of hemorrhaging viewers.
Well, let me go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You have a question.
Well, I'm going to ask the folks out there, because we have a very intelligent and widely varied audience out there in the cult of Cornette. Anybody who's in the TV industry in a position where they would know this. But I got to think, Warner Brothers Discovery or any major network, they've got to be smart enough. Is there some kind of baseline, or have they just said, we don't care what happens over the next 3 years? This is the money you get, even if your ratings fall below 42,000.
That's a good question. I mean, the other question is it even a signed deal, or is it still in deal memo? Because that was the last thing I had heard, was it was still a deal memo.
Well, but even still, I mean, they're still above 42,000. But is there some kind of fucking trigger where, because things have fallen apart ratings-wise in the past, right? Or is there a negotiation of an early out for non-performance? I think that's That's the only thing they may have to worry about if they gave them however much money and said, okay, and just we're trusting that in 3 years, since you've been on the air 5 years, you've lost half the audience you started with. So in 3 years, if you lose 30 more percent, that's trips the trigger. And as Dream Machine Troy Graham would say, it is going to be a graveyard digging in a coffin, buying, long time weeping, and family crying.
See, you know what the problem is? Right now, AEW, I mean, every wrestling company does, even WWE, you need exposure. And they're about to get a whole lot more exposure on paper when they're up on Max. The problem is, if people decide to check out the product right now, it's going to drive them off. It doesn't appeal to anyone. It's driving off their fans. But let's get to the ratings. I mean, we're talking around it and we'll get back to it.
Okay, and speaking, by the way, they got to do some kind of tie-in, Max month on Max with MJF.
Well, MJF's still the
Max!
guy. MJF is still the guy that the executives on the television side see as like the biggest star in AEW. So there's something maybe to what you're saying.
They got to do something like, okay, if they had some TV thing or something, or movie thing that he's doing now that he's an international yacht broker from Toulon, France. They get, well, on Max, we've got Max on the movie and the wrestling and Max. All right, what was the rating?
AEW Dynamite on TBS Wednesday, November 27th, 2024, 8 to 10 p.m. On average, 536,000 viewers.
Woo!
A 0.15 in the key demo, which represents the lowest key demo number ever in Dynamite's normal time slot, and it's the lowest overall number just since November 6th.
Well,
and actually, just for comparison's sake, in 2019, which is right around the time they just started up, the day before Thanksgiving, 668,000. 2020, same day, 710. 2021, 898.
Phew.
2022, 880. 2023, 845. 2024, 536.
Oh.
And the key demo is just in the toilet.
That's over 300,000 people less than last year.
And again, there's a cable drop-off. That's a legitimate thing, but it's not that. It ain't that big.
It ain't almost half. Was the Super Bowl on opposite?
I don't even think the Puppy Bowl was on opposite this thing. But let's go to the quarterly breakdown. Jim, is there anything typically, and again, this year is far worse than any previous year in AEW history, including when they first started, but anything to, they don't want to run, most companies don't want to run shows on Thanksgiving anymore, but the night before a major holiday, Thanksgiving Eve, should that be a problem?
In the territory days, you didn't necessarily want to run the night before Thanksgiving, but for the people didn't want to go out. They were trying to get ready for Thanksgiving, or people had just come to their house or whatever. They weren't going to activities, but they watched television. And I mean,
and for anyone arguing like, oh, well, people go out the night before Thanksgiving at 8 o'clock.
Well, yeah, but their own.
Now that you've made that clear.
Now that I've made that clear, their own track record proves that it shouldn't, affect them that badly again. But after you take out when they had just been on the air for a month or whatever, and the pandemic year, you've got 898, 880, 845, and 536. So more detail on who the culprits were, that instead of the Death Riders, the death ratings.
And I believe this week they aired live on the West Coast, which should be a hit, but not like this. Again, like everything you could use as an argument for the drop, nothing justifies this level of drop, especially in the key demo. Let's go to quarter one, 8 to 8:15 p.m. These were compiled by WrestleNomics. A full gear recap, the Hurt Business Live promo, and the start of Mark Briscoe versus Shelton Benjamin. 724,000 viewers.
Okay, again, not the big numbers that they were starting out with for much of their run, but it's way above the average.
Well, we go to quarter two, 8:15 to 8:30 p.m. The continuation of Mark Briscoe versus Shelton Benjamin with picture-in-picture, and the Mercedes Moné ramp promo.
Oh boy.
Only the start of it, though. 588,000 viewers.
Oh, that's 136,000 people in the first 15 minutes. Mercedes is good, but can we give her credit for all of that?
But again, the other thing is we've always talked about the real number of people that are actually tuning in to start the night with AEW is more than likely what's in the second quarter, and it's 588 here. It's also worth mentioning this is the first Dynamite after the pay-per-view, isn't it?
Yes, that's why they had the full recap of Gear. the full Gear recap at the start of the program. It was the TV show after the big pay-per-view where the fucking rotten heels beat the shit out of all the feckless baby faces.
Well, we go to quarter three, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m. The Mercedes Moné Camille ramp confrontation, a recap, and the start of Chris Jericho versus Tomohiro Ishii.
Oh boy, oi oi.
With picture-in-picture ads. 520,000 viewers.
And another 68,000 bite the dust. Now they're down 204,000.
Well, we go to 8:45.
That first 15 minutes is going to do wonders for their average by the time they get finished with on this sinking ship.
Hey, you know what else? No overrun's going to help them this week because the overrun would have dropped off a cliff, but we'll get there.
Yeah, that's right. There was no overrun because of the college basketball. It was actually important rather than Modern Family, which was a rerun.
Quarter four, 8:45 to 9 p.m. The continuation of Jericho versus Ishii. The Swerve Strickland Max Caster backstage angle. An ad break. And the Hangman Adam Page, Jay White, Death Riders live angle, which ended with Jay White being choked out by a woman. 508,000 viewers.
Oh, so they couldn't, they had seen the chops, and that wasn't going to keep them, and then they get to the death slot of the Death Riders, who are death to the ratings, and now we're on the verge of hitting 400,000 unless they get a bump from the 9 o'clock hour.
And typically they do. And that's always the opportunity. People are going to check out what's going on at 9 o'clock. I don't know how big the audience will be. It'll fluctuate, but that's your chance to win people over and try to keep them for the remainder of the show. 9 to 9:15 p.m., quarter five, the big 9 o'clock hour. Claudio Castagnoli versus Ricochet with picture-in-picture ads. 532,000 viewers.
Aha, so they got another 24,000 people to come in and check them out. Are they going to hang on to them?
Well, that's the problem. If you came in to check out what was on and you got Claudio versus Ricochet, I think this is what happens. 9:15 to 9:30 p.m., quarter six, continuation of Claudio versus Ricochet, the Don Callis Kyle Fletcher backstage promo, and the Adam Cole Undisputed Kingdom Kyle O'Reilly confrontation with MJF's video, followed by an ad break. 479,000 viewers.
Oh my God. Was there an uptick in the suicide rate? We hear that that's really bad around the holidays.
Listen, unless you're going to have Mina Shirakawa topless running around ringside during a Claudio match, no one's going to watch a Claudio match. I'm sorry. He's been booked horribly for long enough that he doesn't matter. And now they're giving him big wins. He destroyed Darby Allin last week on the show. They're giving him a push now. This is only going to get worse. I will save my commentary for the end here. Quarter, what is this, 7? 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. Jamie Hayter versus Queen Aminata with picture-in-picture ads. Mina Shirakawa and Mariah May's backstage angle. That was not backstage. Or if it was, it wasn't supposed to be. followed by an ad break. 476,000 viewers.
Well, at least they just about held what they got.
Well, what they got is quarter 8, 9:45 to 10 p.m. Again for the big Continental tournament. Brody King versus Darby Allin with picture-in-picture. And then Brody King's confrontation with Claudio. 461,000 viewers. 167,000 in the key advertising demo. And again, there's no overrun. If there was an overrun, they may have come close to 400. Because this was a bad show, and everything was driving people away, and they're too stubborn to understand that.
I'm just trying to, I'm needing a pen and paper to do the math. They lost 263,000 viewers from start to finish, what's 263 times 3?
Wait, hold on. I was doing different math.
Well,
Now I fucked it up. Shit.
Oh, now don't blame me.
I was about to. What do you want to know?
Well, I didn't want to ask you a fancy question. I'm just saying, isn't 263 times 3, they lost more than 33%, a third of their, or how many percents did they lose? Just do the math.
Well, hold on. I was doing this math. Let me finish doing this.
Well, when you do your math, then you do my math.
What are you, I'm banging a calculator. What are you
audience? Getting? What percentage of this audience did they lose? He's punching buttons.
The true number, taking out the first quarter, 509,000 is the average.
Ouch! Even worse. And now do my math.
What is your math? What was your question?
My math is what percentage of the people that they started with did they lose? They had to have lost 35 to 40%.
Okay, hold on. So that would be... and the final number was 461. They lost 63.67. Oh, no, excuse me. That is what it is. That is... So they lost just under 37% of the audience.
37, as Luke Williams would say. Boy, howdy, if that was a stock, the CEO would be jumping out of the window, wouldn't he?
But 550 million. 550 million. That now defends all the bad stuff. That's the defense. Because we're supposed to be concerned with Tony Khan's checkbook. If you're Tony Khan, here's a couple of the problems. Tony Khan will never acknowledge that he's the problem. So you just have to realize it's baked into the cake. You're going to have to deal with a booker who doesn't understand anything about booking. And this is with now 5 years of experience. He hasn't learned a fucking thing. And he doubles down.
He's worse now because he's lost the people that were trying to control him.
But Tony ain't going to change. So that's baked in. How's Tony going to get the balls to tell Jon Moxley they can't keep doing this? That's the other problem. This Jon Moxley shit. We've been talking about how bad it is. The public agrees. Nobody wants to see the self-indulgent shit that Jon Moxley fantasizes about. So is Tony Khan going to be able to tell Jon Moxley without Moxley walking out that they can't do this anymore?
But would that be a bad thing?
Are we going to wait until the elite can come back and that's going to be the thing they think is going to save the company and save the ratings? Omega, who, let's see if he can work 2 matches in a row without being out again.
In Japan.
With the Young Bucks against Moxley and Claudio and Pac and we were Yuta? There's no hope. I mean,
the key to the whole thing is if Ibushi's ready to go.
Oh my God!
Because they're going to need some backup. If they got him, then maybe they can take him on.
You thought Tony had a lot of staff. Wait until he has a staph infection.
You'd have physical cripples versus mental cripples.
There's nothing on the horizon that's going to save any of this. It's really bad. They ignored everything that people like us said because we were haters, as they put it, for a long time, about them not developing stars, the booking being awful, no one getting over. Just the matches not really helping anything other than making a few fans happy. One thing after another, and look at the state of the company. They've got $550 million. When is that going to become the story? Holy shit, David Zaslav, while tanking his company, gave this sweetheart deal to a television program that should be good, cheap content that's in the middle of hemorrhaging viewers because the head of creative, who owns the company, so it's never going to change. It's impossible. This is going to keep going down, and they're going to move the max. So I think the overall number will probably go down, and I don't think that's going to help anything. The more people see of AEW right now in its current state, the less they want to see it again.
So they've
got stadiums to fill. Well, one, I guess, now coming up.
Well, not to fill, just to run. But the WBD people, the VD people, whoever the Warner Brothers Discovery Max people, whoever owns this guy, we're going to track it down to find out Howard Hughes is still alive and he actually owns everything behind the scenes. But they also can figure out, because they do it over on the cock all the time, how many people watch their stream, right? They have the technology to do that.
Oh, yes, they do.
So,
they may not release it to the public, but they certainly can get it for themselves.
Well, I was about to say they don't release it to the public, but if there is a significant drop in the television numbers once they start also streaming, then one would think that someone in WBD, if they were dropping instead of gaining, if they weren't making up in the streaming what they were doing on television, one would hear rumblings of that after a while, wouldn't it? If it was a bomb, a stinker, a turd in a punch bowl, one would think that would have to start getting out.
Listen, AEW has always been one bump to the left of a scandal. You know what I mean? Like one guy taking the bad bump that injured them the wrong way and they're dead. And back then they at least had some mojo, some power behind them. You know, it was a young upstart company competing against WWE, had a lot of good grace from the fans. Look at them today. If someone gets badly hurt today, and all of a sudden it's on the news, and then people start asking Warner Brothers Discovery questions, then it's going to turn around to this show, which is hemorrhaging viewers each and every week. The fans don't stay around for their main stuff. Oh, but the key demo's disappearing. So, I mean, the questions, you know, they have a long contract with WBD. How do you think Tony Khan's booking is going to be in 4 years?
Oh,
that's what I'm saying. There's no hope. And then if he stepped down, if Tony Khan said, I'm not going to book, who the fuck is going to replace him? Moxley? No. Bryan Danielson? Oh, God, no. Who's going to replace Tony Khan as booker, which will never happen? So, again, I go back to what I started saying a few years ago. We need another billionaire. We need a billionaire who really wants to do it and has some sort of connections with streaming services to do it the right way and stay the fuck away from the creative.
Well,
Tony Khan has lost his opportunity. Let's face it. He's got the money, but he's got the money. That's the new thing. All of a sudden, we're supposed to look at it like it is a capitalist thing. Tony's got the money, so he won. Hey, who cares if it sucks? $500 million, $550 million, excuse me.
And that's what I'm saying. You're not going to get another billionaire that wants to do this right, because nobody that wanted to do anything right particularly would have spent as much money as Tony spent to get to this point, much less how he's got to this point. So, and then another billionaire would have to compete with this billionaire who is not in any way mindful of what the fuck he's doing as far as business. He don't want to hurt the boy's feelings, and he wants to collect his roster. So if he's already driving the WWE salaries up, allegedly or potentially, then he would drive it up for anybody else that wanted to get in this goddamn business and do it right. So with it, that's why I'm saying we're stuck with this. And that's why I was offended at the start. We're not going to get a second chance.
This is the ultimate end of taking a message board dork from 15 years ago and giving them a wrestling company. Just because you read the Observer, or in this case, just because you have direct access to Dave, doesn't mean you'll ever figure out what you're doing. And Tony, again, he's proven it now. He has no idea how to do a good wrestling show or to build an audience. All he can get credit for is he knew how to get a bunch of money out of Warner Brothers Discovery for a bunch of content that, again, is losing viewers every week. And that's the state of AEW. Jim?
Yes.
Before we get out of here, why don't we end in a good mood, just a little bit about guess the program.
Well, you're just taking over my show, aren't you?
Okay, it's your show.
I'm supposed to be the one to pitch the things around here, I'll have you know, Baba Louie, and you have been whining and crying to me, squealing like an old washwoman. But I got to clean off my desk. I got to get these programs filed. And we got to do a guess the program segment one of these days. And as well, how about, since we just talked about all the new wrestling, to give a little levity to the program, we'll do the levitation virtue of guess the program. And you just hopped right in front of me.
What a great idea. Guess the program. Jim, I never, ever would have thought of that. Hold on. They weren't even on my desk. They're just all over the place.
Well, but see there now, that's the way that it goes. I bring it up and then you agree with it.
Well, you're a very bright man.
Yes, and humble and lovable.
You clearly know what you're doing. Not this program. Let me find a good one here from this pile. Of course, Guess the Program is where I go through programs in my collection.
Yes.
And quiz Jim about the time, the date, the locale, and whatever else he could figure out.
Wait, not the time. I'm not going to figure out if the bell time was 7:30, but I'm going to try to get the location and the year out of this.
How many places do you think you could get based on bell time? Were there any places that you could think of off the top of your head that had a unique bell time that no one else had, like 6:37?
Well, I mean, no, if it was somewhere that I worked and it was a regular, weekly or biweekly territory, you pretty much everything in the Memphis territory was 8 o'clock, except for Memphis was 7:30, because it was always usually a little bit bigger card and they still want to get people out at the same time. For whatever reason, Crockett did this for years, and a number of places did 8:15. And I don't know why that came about. In the Al Zink territory, up there in the Atlantic Canada area, I remember, I think they did like 8:45, because it was daylight later in the summer or some malarkey up there. So it would depend.
All right, Jim, we're our first program here. The opening bout, Cowboy Tony versus Superman Tony Atlas. The second bout, Matt Bourne versus the Dirty White Boy Len Denton. Manager Percy Pringle III. The next bout, Steve Simpson versus the world's strongest man, Ted Arcidi, managed by Percy Pringle III. The next match, Manuel Villalobos,
Manny,
versus the Dirty White Boy, Tim Brooks, manager Percy Pringle III. Tag Team Excitement, flamboyant Eric Embry and Frankie the Thumper versus the rock and roll RPMs of Mike Davis and Tommy Lane. A special lumberjack bout, Al Madrill versus Brian Adias. That sounds like the worst match I've ever heard of in my life. And finally, the main event. Sorry, guys. The main event.
If either one of you are listening, that was Brian last comment.
Seriously, Brian Adias on his own and then Al Madrill at that point on his own. Neither one of those guys makes anyone want to watch.
Well, and there was nobody in the crowd to begin with watching, so.
The main event, the Texas heavyweight champion, Al Perez, managed by Gary Hart, versus Sweet Brown Sugar.
Ooh, Okay. Well, we are obviously in or around Dallas, Texas.
I will
and
confirm we are in or around. It's the Will Rogers Coliseum, Fort Worth.
Okay, well, that's the DFW Metroplex. And good Lord, this was that period where they were about to get a lifeline from Jerry Jarrett, weren't they? That was, I would think this was before the Jarrett invasion of Dallas. And Frankie the Thumper, by the way, was Frank Lancaster or Frank Lang from Florida. And he didn't look anything like Terry Funk in the movie. You've got all of the Texas regulars: Steve Simpson, Matt Bourne, Tim Brooks, Eric Embry, the RPMs, Mike Davis and Tommy Lane. That was a Rock and Roll Express homage. Brian Adias was childhood friends with the Von Erichs, Al Madrill, Percy and everywhere, Al Perez, Gary Hart. Was this Squeet Brown? Squeet.
It was.
this? Was
the famous
this
Sweet Brown Sugar, his only appearance.
Was this Squeet Brown Sugar Skip Young, actually?
I believe so.
Okay, then that was probably, was that his last hurrah anywhere? The only, and that dirty white boy, was that Tony Anthony, or were they just taking the gimmick?
No,
Or was it Lynn Denton?
It was Lynn Denton in one of the bouts, but his partner here was Tim Brooks.
Tim Brooks. Okay, well, the other one was Lynn, is what I'm. And Ted Arcidi, of course. That's the only reason that I think it's got to be 80. Oh, geez. Would this be 88 or 89 in Fort Worth, Texas?
So close. Will Rogers Coliseum, Fort Worth, Texas, Monday, July 20th, 1987.
What? That early?
Because again, you know what the big giveaway was? Kerry wasn't on the show.
Ah, that's right.
Kerry was still out. This is, by the way, the Super Summer Bash. Oh,
God.
It says the Super Summer Bash resumes. I guess maybe there was a part one. And I left something out. Excuse me. A special tug of war challenge. Ted Arcidi versus the original spoiler. Oh, boy.
Good Lord. How old would Don Jardine have been at that point?
This must have been towards the end, because didn't he work with The Undertaker when he started out? The spoiler?
Yes. Well, no, you've said that backwards. The Undertaker worked with Spoiler when Undertaker started out.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
Yes. But goddamn, what a rotten fucking card. No wonder they were about to go out of business.
Your referees, Bronco Lubitsch, Rick Hazard, and Ralph Pulley. And
Rick Hazard was a hell of a guy. Yeah, I know. Whatever happened to Rick Hazard, if anybody knows out there?
There's something here. The headline, Hospital Discharges Has. 1986 WCWA Referee of the Year, Rick Hazard. In any sport you care to name, he has to be there. He can't participate. He can only watch. And he receives in return for doing his job insults from both of the participating parties, as well as the endless scorn of the fans. He's called many things: umpire, official, referee, and he's the man who has to see to it, in English, that the rules governing his sport are followed to the letter. And it's not at all a soft job, and none of these men have it easy. The wrestling referee, however, almost certainly is treated worse than any other rules keeper in any other sport. Not only does he have to prevent the two men he's refereeing from killing each other, he also has to look out for his own hide. Rick Hazard is known throughout the wrestling world as one of the finest striped shirts in the business. In fact, he was voted Referee of the Year in 1986 by the WCWA fans. Has the honor of being one of the few referees to be invited to officiate in Japan. The man from Meriwether County, Georgia, had the respect of the top grapplers in the ring today, but along came a cowboy, a thumper, and a flamboyant one.
And a flamboyant one?
The date, was June 29th. The Will Rogers Coliseum in Fort Worth, Texas was the place. The Has was scheduled to judge the first match of the evening. Little did he know it was going to be his last bout.
I bet you Ralph Pulley was writing this shit.
For a very long time. Rick became furious at the way Cowboy Tony was treating Steve Casey. The self-proclaimed cowboy could have pinned Casey on several occasions, but he pulled him up by the hair every time. Has counted 1, 2. Tony then took it upon himself to shove the referee. Hazard stripped off his official shirt and nailed the former drag queen in the face. It didn't. There's something you rarely see in a wrestling program.
I've never seen Hazard do that in a wrestling ring.
It didn't take very long for Embry and the Thumper to appear. The terrible threesome savagely attacked Hazard. They hit him with an atomic knee drop, followed by a figure 4 by Cowboy Tony. A laughing Eric Embry even jumped on the already injured knee from the top ropes. Hazard was transferred to All Saints Medical Center in Fort Worth, where Dr. Angelo Otero spent 7 hours reconstructing his left knee. Will the horrible rampage of Embry, Thumper, and Tony ever end? We wish Rick a speedy recovery. Well, there it is.
And actually, that shows a little ingenuity from the territory days, because I bet you Hazard tore his ACL. And they said, well, let's do an angle if you're going to have surgery. And boom, there you go.
And all things considered, because I've seen a lot of shitty wrestling programs from hot territories where they didn't really have much, that was pretty well written and explained everything. So there you go.
It may, come to think of it, it may have been Percy doing the programs at that point, now that I think about it.
Well, let's see if Percy did this program. Jim, the opening bout. Ace Freeman, 195, the Bronx, versus Paul Orth, 215 out of Toledo, 1 fall, 15-minute time limit. The top preliminary, Joe Pazendak, 245, Minneapolis, versus Johnny Valentine, 225, Seattle, 1 fall, 15 minutes.
225, okay.
The semifinal, 1 fall to a finish, Hans Schnabel,
good Lord,
and Fritz Schnabel versus Black Guzman and Rito Romero. For a title I will not name, Wild Red Berry, the champion, 220 out of Pittsburgh, versus Chief, I may get this wrong, Chewacki, but it's spelled Chewchki, if that's how you spell it. Chief Chewacki, 234, Ardmore, Oklahoma, 2 out of 3 falls, 90-minute time limit. And the main event for the World's Heavyweight Championship, the champion, Louis Thez, 240, St. Louis, Missouri, versus young Billy Varga, challenger, 205, Los Angeles, California.
Boy, howdy. So much to talk about here. Ace Freeman would later on become the promoter in Pittsburgh, correct? Ace was up in Pittsburgh.
Right. Yep.
But he was a wrestler at that point against whoever the fuck he's wrestling, I've never heard of. Joe Pazandak and Johnny Valentine. If Johnny Valentine, I already knew if he's being billed at 225 pounds, this was probably late 40s, early 50s when he was really a rookie first starting out. Then we go to Hans and Fritz Schnabel against Blackie Guzman and Rito Romero. I was thinking we were possibly headed to Texas. But then we go with Red Berry and Chief Chewacki. Chief Chewacki was this would have been for, you said, a title that you would not name. Was it some type of junior heavyweight championship? It was
a state championship.
A state champion. Ah, okay. And then the world title, Thez, and he's young Billy Varga because he hadn't gone to Los Angeles and become Count Billy Varga yet. And with Red Berry Wrestling, a state title, God damn it. Now I'm thinking with Thez and Varga and it being certainly between 1948 and 1952, let's say, during Thez's run there. It's either Texas or it's Kansas. I bet you it's Texas. I bet you it's Houston. I bet you it is 1950.
Very impressive, very close. The date, Friday, November 4th, 1949.
God damn it.
So the end of 49, Houston, Texas.
All righty then.
You got that. Program number 207, the City Auditorium. And then it has inside here, Vern Gagne made a big hit. Vern Gagne showed up in the ring last week, proudly wearing the blue sweater with the initials USA in red and white across the front. It was the same sweater he had worn in London when he competed on the U.S. Olympic team, and when he took it off, he showed that he was going to be a tough competitor. It was only Vern's 20th pro match, but behind him, more than 1,000 matches in the amateur ranks, and worlds of tough experience. With all the athletic ability that had carried him to the top of the amateur ranks, and also made him one of the best football players his college, the U of Men, had ever developed.
You know, the U of Men, they were big at the football.
Gagne moved into his match with the assurance of a veteran. Be sure to they left out the P. Be sure to keep your eye on that boy Gagne and pronounce it in caps, Gonya. Gagne.
You know, to be quite honest, when I first discovered the wrestling magazines and nobody had the opportunity to talk about Vern Gagne on, Memphis TV here in Louisville, I thought, well, who's that guy, Vern Gagne?
That's what everyone thought. I don't know anyone who didn't think that and then was like, Gagne, what the fuck? But here it is. They say it phonetically here. Louis Thez, world's heavyweight champion, will be at the program desk at 8 o'clock to autograph your program.
Well, boom, right there. Is that one autographed?
This one is not autographed, and it also still has the lucky number attached. That's sometimes a rarity with these really old ones. Two old favorites return again next Friday night. Big Bull Hefner, the Sherman, Texas boy who made good in grappling and now makes his home in Houston, comes back here next Friday night, and another old favorite, who has earned the nickname Bull, will be back too, Alberto Toro Campos. Hefner has been burning up competition on the Pacific Coast, while Campos has been bowling them over around El Paso, where he now makes his home. Campos now weighs 215 pounds, having gained about 20 pounds since his last appearance here, but the long-haired, definitely not handsome Mexican is still as rough as ever. Definitely not handsome.
Can you imagine if the fans walked into a WWE or AEW or any wrestling show these days and actually could read stuff like that, and they were like, this guy is an athlete and we're going to run down his measurements and his record and tell you how he's going to fight the other. It would be so refreshing.
Girl grapplers appear here 2 weeks from tonight, and mark that date in your book right now, November 18th. The Grapplerettes will return to action in the Houston ring. That promises to be a great date for fans who like action, and plenty of it, beauty, and plenty of it. They will get all that and plenty more.
Bullshit and plenty of it.
They will get all that and plenty more, all at the same time when the girls appear. So far, the final lineup is not assured, but promoter Morris Siegel has received an acceptance from Violet Vian. I'm not too familiar with her, I have to be honest. Mae Weston, June Byers, and Mae Young. There are still several more to be heard from, and no matter who else accepts, the four named above promise to give fans all the action they want. That's interesting, the way they put that. Like, these four have accepted so far.
Yeah.
We're waiting to hear back from more.
I bet you they just ended up with a tag team match. What do you bet?
Do you know anything about this woman? Miss Violet Vian.
Violet Vian is,
Vian, excuse me.
What I think that's the way that, but I always said Gagney, so you never know. But she was one of the early Billy Wolf troupe of that era, probably from, I would say, maybe late 40s through mid 50s. I've seen the name many times and it stands out because of the alliteration with the V's, but I don't know that she was ever one of the top ladies on the circuit, as they say.
Well, let's go to our next program, Jim. The opening bout, George Scott versus Lorenzo Parenti.
Oh, good Lord. Okay.
The second bout, Sandy Scott versus Ray Gordon. Professor Hero versus the Lawmen.
Ugh.
Ivan Kamelkoff versus Leaping Larry Shane.
That's Kalmakoff, by the way.
We have some tag team matches. Rita Cortez and Lucille Dupree versus Bambi Ball and Mary Jane Mole.
Good Lord.
Also, Sonny Boy Cassidy and Phantom Lopez versus Billy the Kid and Farmer Pete.
Wait a minute, you're going too fast. I can't write them all down. Who did Billy the Kid and Farmer Pete wrestle?
Sonny Boy Cassidy and Phantom Lopez. That's a great name. A special attraction, Edouard Carpentier versus Chuck Bruce.
Good Lord.
And the main event, Fritz Von Erich versus Johnny Valentine.
Oh my, okay. Fritz, we all know. And this was a period of time where he was not in Texas. So this was going to be late 50s, early 60s at best. Valentine, we've just talked about a minute ago.
How do you know he's not in Texas here? What was the giveaway for that?
Because all of the rest of the people that we're going to talk about, except, hold on here. Let me work through it. Carpentier, the French legend, but at this period of time, if this is what I'm thinking, this was shortly after he was considered for, and they went through the whole NWA title fiasco. That happened in 57. Chuck Bruce, I got no fucking clue. Billy the Kid, Farmer Pete, Cassidy, and the Phantom were midgets of the time, and them makes me start thinking it's later than I would have thought it was. Mary Jane Mull was working for Bruiser in the mid-70s, but you see her name on cards in the early 50s. Rita Cortez and Lucille Dupree. Ivan Kalmakoff was a Russian, but later became the manager of the Mighty Igor as a babyface, and Leaping Larry Shane was biggest in the Midwest and the Detroit area, but he was killed in a car wreck in the late 1960s. Hero? What was it? Mr. Hero?
That is correct. Just Mr. Hero.
Versus the Lawman.
Oh, no, excuse me. Professor Hero.
Professor Hero versus the Lawman. Don the Lawman Slatton, but I don't think it's the same one, but that would have been Texas with Fritz. But could it have been the same one? Because George and Sandy Scott, Lorenzo Parenti was a heck of a worker. He was both a babyface and heel for years in the Tennessee territory. Ray Gordon would become Guillotine Gordon. Were the Scott brothers in Texas? And would Carpentier have been there? And if this is Fritz and Valentine and they are in Texas, it would be early to mid-60s rather than late 50s in the Buffalo territory, which is what I might have thought, except when you first said the Scots and Professor Hero, I was thinking Calgary. So, God damn it, I'm going to say just because This is 19... Well, but now I'm talking myself into Calgary. 1961 in Calgary, Canada.
Oof.
I'm all over the place, ain't I?
You're going to get, as soon as I say it, I think you're going to realize it.
Okay.
Saturday, April 11th, 1964, Detroit, Michigan.
Son of a bitch!
This is an Olympia wrestling card.
Son of a bitch. Before Barnett left, or maybe right as he was leaving the country, because it doesn't look like a ton of care was put in this thing. All right, well...
And this is before it had the body press on the front, so it would just have like a headline as the cover of the program.
I shit the bed all over that one.
Who needs referees? That's what it says where normally the name of the actual publication would be. Let me grab at least one more. Let's do one or two more. Let me give a relatively easy one.
Oh, now don't condescend to me. Let me give you a gimme there, Grandpa.
Well, no, I think even the listeners who don't have extreme knowledge of 1950s territory wrestling would probably have a chance here. The opening bout, which was not in the program, but it's written in, Manuel Soto versus Pete Sanchez.
Okay.
Also written in, Johnny Rivera versus Jose Cadiz. Johnny Rods versus S.D. Jones. Doug Gilbert versus Big Bobo Brazil. Bruiser Brody versus Kevin Sullivan. A 4-man tag team match. Baron Cicluna and Rocky Tamayo versus Billy Whitewolf and Chief Jay Strongbow. Another 4-man tag bout, 2 out of 3 falls. The Executioners, 1 and 2, versus Jose Gonzalez. And filling in for Haystacks Calhoun, Dominic DiNucci. 1 fall to a finish, Skandar Akbar.
Good Lord.
Versus Ivan Putski. In the main event...
You know, that's a little curiosity there. Most people would not remember Akbar as a WWF talent, but I'm spilling the beans already. Go ahead.
And you almost wouldn't think so because of his size, but yeah, there he was.
Well, the thing is, he was almost as wide as he was tall, and what a fucking power lifter. For those days, he was very stout.
The main event, a steel cage match, 1 fall to a finish. Stan Hansen versus Bruno Sammartino.
Okay, well, this is obviously the WWF running down some of the names, you know, Manuel Soto, Pete Sanchez, Johnny Rivera, Johnny Rods, S.D. Jones. These are guys that, you know, were on the cards up there in underneath positions for all kinds of time. Doug Gilbert, not the Doug Gilbert, the brother of Eddie Gilbert, but the original, or at least the predecessor, Doug Gilbert, Doug the Pro Gilbert he was on top in Atlanta in the 60s as the mass professional, the pro. And then later on, they called him Gas House Gilbert up there for whatever fucking reason, I don't know. Bobo Brazil, need we say more? Kevin Sullivan against Bruiser Brody. And with Stan Hansen in the main event, Brody and Hansen had started together in the Leroy McGurk, the Tri-States territory, Oklahoma, Missouri. And had worked some in the, you know, the future Mid-South territory also. And then they both about the same time, because of their size, got the break to go up to work for Vince Sr. Baron Cicluna from the Isle of Malta. Jay Strongbow was teaming with Billy Whitewolf, who was Adnan Casey, because they needed another Indian. And the Executioners were Killer Kowalski and Chuck the Monster O'Connor, who would later on change his name and fade into obscurity as Big John Studd. And it's very interesting that Jose Gonzalez was working up there in the territory at the same time as Bruiser Brody. And as the legend goes, that's when Brody was getting a push and Gonzalez was not really. Brody beat the shit out of him on a TV taping, and we've all heard that story. And Dominic DeNucci filling in for Haystacks Calhoun, because DeNucci was from Pittsburgh, and at that point of his career was on the way winding down, but was still a name that could fill in for Haystacks, who was he was winding down at that point as well. And Ivan Putski against Akbar. Bruno is on top with Hansen. So this has to be 1976. And by the size of the card, it's either got to be the Madison Square Garden or the Philadelphia Spectrum. One would think. Possibly the Boston Garden. But I'm gonna go with Madison Square Garden just because fuck it. 1976.
The date? Saturday, August 7th, 1976, Madison Square Garden.
There you go.
And I think we're going to end with this program because you got everything right. So I don't want to
don't
that
fuck
feeling
with my
for you.
mojo now. Let me leave on top. Let me do a Costanza. And that was, of course, the rematch from the Ali Inoki Stadium match with Hansen and Bruno was, what was that, June 25th or 26th was the date on that.
You say Ali Inoki, although the people who went there to see it went to see Bruno and Hansen have the big match after Bruno broke his neck. Did you ever hear the audio that Bill Apter has of him and Bruno? I think like sitting in the Mets dugout at Shea Stadium.
Yes, watching Ali and Inoki. Yes, I've heard some of it. Bill released some of it some time back.
It's great. The whole time Bruno is just disgusted with what he sees. He's like, look at this. What is this crap? What is it?
What is he doing? He should take him down.
And, you know, I mean, beyond it being shit, especially for 1976 eyes, you got to remember Bruno was incredibly loyal to Giant Baba. He wouldn't do anything with Inoki, even to the point where Vince Sr. had his deal with Inoki. It was around Bruno. Bruno wouldn't work there.
Yeah, because Bruno had become friends with Baba when Baba toured the United States from, 61 to 63, and they had worked in the Garden. They'd worked in Toronto. And Bruno, whenever he went to Japan, he went for Baba only. They were very close friends, but he was also mortified that Inoki wasn't doing a better job of representing the wrestling business than to. And of course, I'm sure that they hadn't shared at that point with Bruno all the problems with the finish, but I can see Bruno say, he should take him down, double leg him.
Well, that was Guess the Program here for this edition, and we'll certainly do more soon because the pile is growing and it's always a good time.
Oh, I forgot. This is my show, isn't it?
Yes, that was awful.
In that case, it's over before you go any further. Hey, everybody, come back and see us next time. Until then, thank you, fuck you, and bye-bye, everybody.